Chapter 14:16. Cough cough. Emohan Shang was also rather embarrassed. He coughed dryly a few times as his delicate face surfaced a thin shade of red. He raised his eyes towards Yi Qing Luo. Qing Luo. The three Nan Tao Academy students who were seated at the same table as Emohan Shang all looked at Emohan Shang in astonishment, as though they hadn't expected this. Emohan Shang actually knew Heavenly Academy's students. Furthermore, they knew Devil Class's students. Why hadn't Emohan Shang mentioned this before? First Academy and Second Academy were born to be arch-enemies. The Academy's teachers fought openly and secretly, never getting in touch with each other. Whereas Nan Tao Academy students, who were often compared to Heavenly Academy's students, were belittled every single time. This led to Nan Tao Academy's students not liking Heavenly Academy's students. Yi Qing Luo could tell the enmity in those three Nan Tao Academy's students' eyes. Her brows rose as her pink lips curled into a smile. Han Shang, I didn't expect you to be Nan Tao Academy's student. Emohan Shang was a little uneasy as he lowered his eyelids. His curly long lashes covered that pair of delicate and beautiful eyes. I didn't mean to hide it. The disputes between the academies is the academy's matter. Our friendship is our matter. Yi Qing Luo interrupted his self-reproach as her slender hand placed on Emohan Shang's shoulder as she smiled elegantly. No matter if you're Nan Tao Academy's student or any other academy student, it doesn't change the fact that we had once experienced life and death together. When she placed her hand on Emohan Shang's shoulder, Yi Qing Luo then realized in shock that his shoulder was extremely slender. Even more slender than her shoulder. The meaning in Yi Qing Luo's words was referring to the fact that they had once done a complicated grade mission together, experiencing life and death together. But in the ears of the other Nan Tao Academy's students, it had become another meaning. The gazes they shot towards Emohan Shang and Yi Qing Luo were filled with ambiguity. Emohan Shang's face turned redder as he clenched his fists in anger and stared at those few students. Don't misunderstand. Qing Luo already has a faded one. Don't use this kind of gaze on me. I don't want to be beheaded. If the Overlord were to find out that his relationship with Qing Luo was so ambiguous, based on the Overlord's possessiveness towards Qing Luo, he would definitely tear him apart with his own hands. Those few students were apparently on rather good terms with Emohan Shang. That gaze was still ambiguous, as he grinned evilly as he glanced at him and Yi Qing Luo. Although this playful smile made Emohan Shang even more embarrassed. But at least the atmosphere had eased up. Yi Qing Luo interrupted their teasing in a timely manner as she smiled. You'd better hurry up and eat your fill, so that there's 1 incense worth of time left for digestion. 1 hour later, there will be a huge battle. Nan Tao Academy's 3 students' ambiguous smiles froze as they looked at Yi Qing Luo warily. As though he didn't believe that Yi Qing Luo, as the student representative of the Heavenly Academy, would say something about the enemy's school. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother whether those students believed her or not. She said these words purely because of Emohan Shang's face. If they didn't believe her, there was nothing she could do. Look for me if there's anything. Do your best for these 7 days of training. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes hooked slightly, drawing out a long and narrow arc. Emohan Shang nodded his head as he suppressed his voice and said, I will do my best, and about the matter earlier, you really don't mind me telling those classmates of mine about it? Your friends are our friends. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as she smiled lightly as she rubbed Emohan Shang's shoulder. All right, fill your tummies first, don't waste any more time. Saying that, she, Long Yunzhan and the others returned to their own table. Before they left, she didn't forget to remind them, for this training, no matter what instructions the instructors give, it's best to complete it unconditionally in the shortest time possible, otherwise the consequences will not just be being eliminated. Those 3 Nan Tao Academy students looked at each other in dismay, as though they were trying to figure out the degree of credibility in Yi Qing Luo's word. But, not waiting for them to raise their doubts, Yiqing Luo and the others had already returned to their table, as they continued to eat. Chapter 14-17. Indeed, as Yiqing Luo had expected. 1 hour later, Gui Wu directly let each school's students and those 4 instructors to fight hand to hand. Because of the large number of students, Gui Wu directly went from one school to another and all the students collectively launched an attack against the instructors, fighting hand to hand. The rules of this strength training were very simple. Under the premise of not releasing profound qi and using unorthodox methods, just relying on hand-to-hand skills to defeat an instructor, it would be considered as the school's victory. After hearing these rules, those school students were all stunned. Their gazes towards those 4 instructors were filled with fiery gazes. One must know that each school had at least 100 over to 300 students. 1 to 200 students, ganging up on 4 instructors? There was no need for any skills at all. They could just ganging up and beat them to death. As compared to the other schools' students' excitement, Devil Class's students quietly creased their brows. This kind of training method was the same as Yiqing Luo, Gui Yu and Supreme Mo's Master Dmo Xian. Ganging up on the instructors. It wasn't that simple at all. But Devil Class's students didn't feel afraid because of this. On the contrary, the battle intent in their hearts was burning extremely vigorously. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo's prowess, they had already witnessed it. The instructors brought by Gui Wu and Zhou Mo would definitely have extraordinary skills. To be able to fight hand-to-hand with these people, it would definitely allow them to learn a lot of fighting skills. Devil Class's students were thinking in this way with a learning attitude. But the other students only felt that they should quickly surround these 4 instructors and return to their own dormitories to rest. Does everyone understand? Gui Wu's steady voice, no matter how one listened, and that immature young man's face, had an extremely strong sense of incompatibility. Then, the first group to challenge the school. Me, let's do it. A third-tier school's representative hurriedly interrupted Gui Wu's words. Gui Wu frowned as a sliver of displeasure appeared in his eyes. Zhou Mo pressed Gui Wu's arm as he gave a devilish smile and said cheerfully, "All right, then let your school be the vanguard." Saying that, his gaze shot towards the main school's elder not far away. "Then I'll have to trouble the elder to be the judge." All the school's students stood in a line around the training ground. He emptied the space in the middle for the students of the academy to fight with the 4 instructors. The 4 instructors all looked muscular and extremely sturdy. As they stood in the center of the arena, they exuded a powerful aura. The representatives of the third-tier academies were stunned by his aura. Swallowing hard, he encouraged himself and called for his classmates to come forward. This time, there were about 200 students from the third-tier academies. When he stood on the training ground, it was immediately densely packed. The 4 instructors were nowhere to be seen. 200 students against 4 instructors. There was no suspense in the outcome. The other students were also looking forward to this match. It would be best if they could defeat the 4 instructors. After that, they could return to their dorms and have a good rest. Duel, start! With a command, the 200 students swarmed toward the direction of the instructor. Everyone was already mentally prepared for the battle to end in an instant. At this moment, something that left them dumbfounded happened. "Pay attention, all of you, look carefully." Yiqing Luo spoke in a deep voice from the mercenary group badge. Devil Class's students immediately congealed as their eyes were fixated on the movements in the arena. Chapter 14-18. One after another, figures flew out horizontally. Like a fairy scattering flowers, they flew out in all directions. "Ah! Help! Oh my mother!" Cries of agony resounded throughout the entire training grounds. Obviously, those who flew out horizontally were not the instructors. That was 200 over students from third-tier academies. But in an instant there were only 4 instructors left on the training ground. The instructors were dressed neatly, standing ramrod straight. There wasn't any disheveled or messy look. As though the people who were beaten up earlier weren't the four of them. Looking at those 200 over students, they were all sent flying, landing outside the crowd, lying on the ground, writhing in pain. Yiqing Luo's eyes squinted slightly. Indeed, these four instructors were extraordinary. Earlier the four instructors' actions, did you see clearly? Yiqing Luo asked calmly. Within the mercenary group badge, there was a dead silence. Being surrounded by 200 students, the instructors' figures had already been covered. Devil class's students' vision was also obstructed. No one saw clearly what did the instructors do, which resulted in such a short period of time, to send 200 students flying. In the world's martial arts, only speed is unbeatable. Yiqing Luo didn't blame them. Under that kind of situation, it was indeed difficult to see the instructor's actions. Even she could only faintly sense the frequency and fluctuation of their actions. She continued, "These four instructors' movements are very fast. If you meet them later, remember not to let them get close to you, otherwise your outcome will be the same as those students." The expressions on Devil class's students were getting more and more excited. All of them were rubbing their palms, eager to give it a try. Yan Xiaoyi hooked Kitty Li's shoulder, holding her forehead as she sighed. A bunch of young youngsters, after staying under Yiqing Luo's hands for a few months, all of them, had now become little perverts. The more challenging the things, the more interested they were. These words Yiqing Luo didn't avoid Mo Han Shang. Four instructors, in just an instant, sent 200 students flying onto the ground. This kind of battle power made those students who originally had the attitude of watching a show instantly tensed up. They couldn't believe their own eyes. Under the situation where they didn't use profound qi, it was just a hand-to-hand fight. He was actually able to send the students flying so quickly, and it didn't even affect him at all. Who's going to the next academy? Gui Wu narrowed his eyes and swept his gaze over those students in disdain. Seeing the fear and dread in their eyes, the disdain and mockery in their eyes intensified. The remaining dozens of academies were silent at this moment. That scene just now shocked them so much that they still had no way to recover from their shock. After a moment of silence, he realized that the entire place had fallen into a deathly silence. Almost at the same time, the students of those academies looked towards the direction of the Heavenly Academy. The Heavenly Academy was the top academy. Under such circumstances, it should be the first academy's turn. With this in mind, those students used the excuse of the best academy, the first academy, and so on to urge the Heavenly Academy's students and instructors for actual combat training and testing. He listened to the urging words around him. Zi Qianqian's face turned slightly pale. She did not have the time to understand the fighting style of the four instructors. Chapter 14:19. If she were to go on stage, she would definitely lose all her face. Zi Qianqian didn't want the number one beauty that she had painstakingly created, the identity of the genius fairy, to be destroyed in a day. The surrounding students were still urging him to hurry up. She squeezed out a cold smile and tried hard to put on a superior look. Her mind was pondering how to avoid going on stage now. But she heard a deep voice coming from not far away. "The Heavenly Academy's people have no guts. My Nantao Academy is not afraid." That was the elder of Nantao Academy, at this moment with a face full of fear. He blew his beard and stared. "Students of Nantao Academy, stand out." The students of Nantao Academy looked pale. But since the elder had spoken, they could only bite the bullet and stand out. The students of Nantao Academy perhaps had already inquired about the news of the Heavenly Academy. The number of people was comparable to the Heavenly Academy. About 150 students. Bring out your usual performance and have a good duel with the four instructors, so that the instructors can understand your strength, so that they can train you in a more accurate way, the elder said while blowing his beard and staring at the Heavenly Academy provocatively. If it was Elder Yunxiang who followed the Heavenly Academy today, he would probably have been provoked and forcefully compete with the Nantao Academy. However, it was Instructor Chu and Instructor He who followed the group today. They had always been cold and aloof, and had no heart to compare. They didn't care about the provocation of the Nantao Academy at all. The elder of Nantao Academy provoked for a long time, but did not see any response from the Heavenly Academy. His face darkened and became extremely ugly. But the arrow was already on the bowstring, it had to be released. The elder exhorted a few words and retreated into the crowd. The students of Nantao Academy had no choice but to accept the challenge. After respectfully saluting the 4 instructors, the students of Nantao Academy took the lead to launch an attack. The students of the 2nd Academy were indeed stronger than the 3rd-tier academies by more than a little. The students' cooperation was also not bad. After a portion of the students were sent flying, Mo Han Shang quickly mobilized the students to change their tactics and entangled with the instructors. Perhaps it was because he saw that these students were more or less eye-catching. The instructors were not in a hurry to defeat them, but set after set of fist and palm techniques, constantly breaking the attacks of the other students. The students of the Devil class finally saw the trajectory of the instructors' moves this time. Yi Qing Luo. Zi Qianqian's voice suddenly sounded from the side. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and glanced sideways, only to see Zi Qianqian's gloomy expression. Zi Qianqian lowered his voice and said, "Right now, we are all doing this for the honor of the Academy. Don't embarrass us because of your own selfish desires. I should be the one saying that to you." Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched in ridicule. "Student Zi Qianqian, you'd better control your own jealousy. This is the Academy's honor, don't because of your own selfish desires, cause yourself to lose face." Yi Qing Luo's tone was filled with contempt, extremely sarcastic. Her long and narrow eyes also revealed a trace of mockery. Zi Qianqian's face instantly darkened. Her exquisite and beautiful face looked a bit ferocious. She bit her lips. Yi Qing. Fall. Was she jealous? Yi Qing Luo was merely a waste, and she was the goddess that everyone chased after. Was there a need to be jealous of that slut Yi Qing Luo? What selfish desire! What did he mean by embarrassing herself? Chapter 1420. Ah, bam bam. Just as Zi Qianqian was about to retaliate, suddenly a miserable shriek was heard. Zi Qianqian stopped his voice and immediately looked towards the training grounds. Nantao Academy students, under the hands of the 4 instructors, persisted for about half an incense's time. Finally they were sent flying out of the crowd. If it was said, for the first time, 3rd-tier Academy students were all sent flying, it was possible that the students were too conceited and didn't treat this actual combat assessment seriously, giving the 4 instructors this chance. Then this time, Nantao Academy was the 2nd Academy. Nantao Academy students were not any worse off than Heavenly Academy students. But they only persisted for half an incense's time in the hands of the instructors. Heavens! Weren't these 4 instructors too heaven-defying? All the students had the same thought in their minds. They had close to 2,000 over students ganging up on them, they might be sent flying all over the ground? Qing Luo. From within the metal, Mo Han Shang's voice was heard with a tinge of pain. These 4 instructors' skills are very fast and just like what you predicted, the minute they get close to you, there's no way to resist at all and you'll be struck flying and eliminated. Yi Qing Luo touched her chin and muttered to herself for a moment, "Which of their instructors did you cross hands with?" 4. Mo Han Shang replied. The 4 instructors took turns to cross hands once. Their speed and strength are all very strong and after being touched by them, you couldn't muster up any strength, so there's no way to avoid their attack. They're really hard to deal with. Yi Qing Luo muttered softly. With Mo Han Shang's words, the other Devil Class's students all went into deep thoughts. They followed Mo Han Shang's words and after seeing the instructors stretching out their hands, their brains started to think of ways to restrain the instructors. Gui Wu looked at Nan Tao Academy's students, and the unhappy expression on his face became more and more obvious. In his eyes, they couldn't even defeat these instructors. These students were all trash. Especially when he saw the obvious fear in those students' eyes, and how they didn't dare to go up to battle. His heart was getting more and more frustrated. These trash, what did they usually learn in the academy? Just with this kind of aptitude, they dared to be called elite students? When the main elder asked who wanted to challenge the third academy, the entire crowd once again fell into a dead silence. The students pushed and shoved each other, none of them willing to step forward. The annoyance and disdain in Gui Wu's heart was already unbearable. He abruptly slammed the table, and his disdainful gaze swept across the students. A bunch of trash. Why should I waste my time for trash like you? What *T training? I don't have the time for that. The expressions on the students' faces became extremely embarrassed. Those who were thin-skinned blushed and their eyes reddened. I'll woo you. Wrinkling his brows, Zoemo was just about to open his mouth to appease Gui Wu's emotions. However, Gui Wu was unable to restrain his anger as he berated. Enough! It's all because you were so bored that you had to drag me along and waste my time on this group of trash. No matter how much they train, this group of trash is still trash. His words were merciless, causing the faces of the students present to turn red. He wanted to retort, but he didn't know how. His opponent was the Ghost Martial Grandmaster. He was the famous Ghost Martial Master. The entire Nirvana realm knew about his ability. In his eyes, they were indeed trash. But when Gui Wu said that they were trash in front of everyone, all the students' self-esteem seemed to have been ruthlessly trampled on the ground. Chapter 14:21. Waste. This was a term that most of the students were unwilling to bear. Especially Nan Tao Academy's students, they were so ashamed that they didn't dare to cry out in pain. One by one, the young faces were twisted as they endured the pain. There were 100 and 200 of them, but they couldn't defeat 4 instructors. They were ashamed too. So ashamed that they couldn't show their faces. Especially when they heard Gui Wu's reprimand, they felt that this was all because of them. They were the students of the second academy. But in the hands of the instructors, they couldn't last more than half an incense. Their ears kept ringing with Gui Wu's words. Their hearts gradually sunk, as if there was a huge rock pressuring their hearts. The training grounds. It was silent. No one dared to speak. No one dared to refute Gui Wu's words. Such a reaction caused Gui Wu to feel increasingly vexed in his heart. His gloomy cold gaze swept past those students below and finally landed on Yiqing Luo. Following that, he shook off Zomo's hand, turned around and prepared to leave. Zomo's handsome brows knitted tightly as he quickly chased up, trying to pull Gui Wu back. Gui Wu's footsteps became faster. Master Gui Wu, wait a minute. Just at this moment, a clear voice, in this silent atmosphere, was extremely loud. Following that, he saw a stunning young lady dressed in green and white uniform, slowly walking out from the crowd. Yiqing Luo. Zi Qianqian bellowed, as he wanted to pull Yiqing Luo back. But helplessly, Yiqing Luo had already walked far away. Zi Qianqian could only withdraw his hand, as he furiously clenched his fists. Gui Wu's footsteps halted. He turned back as his eyes met with Zhou Mo's. Then at the same time, he looked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light, her posture elegant, not hurried nor slow. She wasn't walking towards Gui Wu and Zhou Mo. Instead, she was walking towards the crowd, towards the direction of Nan Tao Academy's students who were sent flying. The surroundings were completely silent. Only the sound of Yiqing Luo's slow footsteps could be heard. And the originally furious, disdainful and mocking Gui Wu stood rooted to the ground, not blaming Yiqing Luo for being unreasonable. Yiqing Luo walked to Emohan Shang's side, as she bent down and helped him up. Where does it hurt? Emohan Shang was stunned by Yiqing Luo's actions. He was startled for a moment before he came back to his senses. He shook his head in panic and said, "I'm fine, you instructors control their strength and skills very well, it's just some superficial injuries. Rest for tonight and it should be fine by tomorrow." Yiqing Luo minded her own business as she checked on Emo Han Shang's injuries. When Yiqing Luo's hand touched his body, Emo Han Shang's expression tightened as he frantically pushed Yiqing Luo away and retreated a few steps. "I'm really fine." Yiqing Luo's hand froze in midair. She squinted her eyes as she glanced at Emo Han Shang's chest with interest, and immediately shifted her line of sight as she calmly retracted her hand. She turned around and looked at the two youths on the main stage who were looking at her. "I have a few points that I would like to refute Master Gui Wu's words." Yiqing Luo's voice was elegant, with a faint hint of a smile. The rippling splendor in her enchanting eyes was like a blooming rose. The students of the various academies all gasped in shock. This Yiqing Luo, what on earth was she trying to do? She actually dared to refute Master Gui Wu's words? Did she really think that she was a famous figure, and wanted to challenge Master Gui Wu? Chapter 1422. Just as the students were waiting for Gui Wu to be infuriated and teach Yiqing Luo a lesson. But they heard Gui Wu's icy cold voice. "Why don't you tell me, what did I say wrong? Firstly, these students are not trash. Gui Wu Master's words are simply too hurtful to these students' pride." Yiqing Luo didn't beat around the bush, as she spoke in an extremely calm tone. Her expression was also very calm. No arrogance or rudeness, and no fear of putting up a strong front. Aren't they trash? Each and every one of them should have learned at least 5 years of skills in the academy? They should be at least 17 or 18 years old, right? They don't even know the most basic combat skills. Are these students fit to be called elite students? Gui Wu snorted coldly as his vile words didn't give those students any face. When those students heard that, an embarrassed and ashamed expression surfaced on their faces once again. Zi Qianqian and the rest's expressions were steely green as they called out to Yiqing Luo softly, asking her to hurry back. Their hearts were filled with resentment towards Yiqing Luo. This Yiqing Luo seemed to be standing up for them, but in actual fact, she was humiliating them till they were too ashamed to show their faces. Yiqing Luo totally ignored Zi Qianqian and the rest's actions. She smiled elegantly as her pair of charming eyes looked at Gui Wu calmly as she laughed lightly. "Because they are not you." Gui Wu was stunned as he didn't understand the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. "Gui Wu Master, not everyone is like you, possessing such excellent innate talent and enviable ability. This is an ability bestowed upon you by the heavens, but it doesn't mean that everyone has this ability." She said it word by word as she fixed her gaze on Gui Wu. Her brows were filled with calmness. Those ashamed students suddenly raised their heads as they looked at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. Yiqing Luo continued, "In 5 years, you can advance from an ordinary cultivator to a high-leveled cultivator in the Earth Profound Realm, or even more, to the Sky Profound Realm. When you're 17 or 18 years old, perhaps you're already a Sky Profound Overlord expert, an unrivaled Gui Wu Master. But that's your unique innate talent. These students, they are just ordinary people, or perhaps their innate talent is slightly stronger than ordinary people, but after all, they are not you. That's why, Master Gui Wu, you can't demand these ordinary students, or even those slightly talented profound practitioners, to be like you, based on your talent and rhythm. Everyone is born with a purpose. Their abilities might not be fighting or profound qi. They might also have outstanding talents in artifact forging, medicine concocting, or other areas. The students in the training grounds all fixed their gazes on Yiqing Luo without blinking. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning in their hearts. Yiqing Luo's words gave them a huge confidence. That was right, they were not ghost warriors. He did not have the talent of the ghost martial artist. Not being able to become as powerful as Gui Wu was not because they were trash. What I want to say is that none of us are useless. The real trash are those who only know how to retreat, and don't dare to take a step forward no matter what danger they encounter. After Yi Qing Luo finished her words, her brows rose as she looked at Gui Wu, her pink lips curled upwards. Master Gui Wu, what do you think this student said, is right? Gui Wu narrowed his eyes, which were filled with deep meaning, as he sized up Yi Qing Luo deeply. This girl was indeed different from what he had imagined. He actually said something that even he couldn't refute. Chapter 1423. Wasn't this considered as giving a slap on the face and giving a carrot? All of Gui Wu's words were stuck in his throat. This was the first time Gui Wu was blocked by someone other than Zhou Mo, and all his words were stuck in his throat. He wanted to say something, but didn't know how to open his mouth. Looking at Gui Wu's gloomy and cold expression, but not spitting out a single word, Zhou Mo laughed unkindly as he held onto his stomach. One hand hooked onto Gui Wu's shoulder, while the other raised a thumbs up towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Her smile was called a flower's branch, which was called 1,000 dainty and 100 enchanting. Even if it was a man, he was almost bewitched by that enchanting face. Shut up! Gui Wu waved his hand and slapped Zhou Mo's hand away, as his expression darkened, as he stared at Yi Qing Luo's direction. He didn't say a word, but only used that pair of extremely dignified and oppressive gaze, as he stared coldly at Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo was also extremely calm, as her pink lips rose slightly, as she calmly and politely gazed at Gui Wu. 4 pairs of eyes met, and no one took half a step back. Yi Qing Luo's words made those students' hearts surge with an indescribable palpitation. None of them were trash. The real trash were those who only knew how to retreat, and didn't dare to move forward. They weren't geniuses, and if they wanted to become strong, they needed to rely on continuous hard work, to learn, to struggle. Gui Wu's innate talent was invincible. He could treat them as trash. But they couldn't belittle themselves. The entire audience was silent. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the training ground, on the young girl with a face that could topple cities. The smile on her face, the resolute and calm gaze in her eyes. All of them were filled with convincing, unlimited hope. Everything in the surroundings dimmed down. As though everything in the world was not as dazzling as her. She actually dared to challenge Master Gui Wu. Moreover, her imposing manner was not inferior to Master Gui Wu's imposing manner. If they were to face Master Gui Wu's gaze, they probably wouldn't even be able to look at each other for a moment, before kneeling down and surrendering. The various academies' students suddenly understood. This young lady who shone brilliantly in the Heavenly Academy's interclass competition, and became a legendary figure in the West Continent, wasn't an undeserved reputation. The students of the various academies no longer feared the 4 instructors. These 4 instructors were so powerful. Gui Wu also did not emphasize that they had to win against the 4 instructors. Moreover, the students of Nantao Academy were all sent flying. What were they afraid of? Just as the students were about to charge forward bravely, he heard Yi Qing Luo's elegant voice ringing once again. Since I've stood out and refuted Master Gui Wu's words, then naturally I can't just talk without doing anything. Next challenger, Heavenly Academy. She paused and heard Zi Qianqian reprimanding sharply, Yi Qing Luo? You're crazy. Did you even ask for our opinion? Yi Qing Luo being in the limelight had already caused Zi Qianqian's heart to overflow with resentment. She had been restraining the anger and jealousy in her heart. But when Yi Qing Luo mentioned the next challenge, all of Zi Qianqian's rationality had collapsed. Yi Qing Luo was intentionally trying to harm her, so that she would lose all her face in front of the various academies, and in front of Ghost Martial Master. Hadn't Yi Qing Luo harmed her enough during that interclass competition? What kind of state was Yi Qing Luo trying to force her into? Zi Qianqian's resentment towards Yi Qing Luo was getting more and more intense. Chapter 1424. Qianqian. Wei Beilai noticed Zi Qianqian's situation and immediately grabbed her wrist, reminding her in a low voice. However, Zi Qianshan's thoughts were all on Yi Qing Luo at this moment. Her eyes were ruthless as she clenched her fist. Yi Qing Luo, you have no team spirit at all. The Heavenly Academy is not decided by you alone. What right do you have to make decisions for us? The students from the various academies looked at Zi Qianshan, who was known as the #1 beauty, in shock. Their eyes were filled with disdain. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Her curved eyebrows outlined a long and narrow arc, which made that pair of charming eyes look even more demonic. She looked at Zi Qianshan with a smile full of ridicule. Looks like student Zi Qianshan is the real waste. Earlier, Yi Qing Luo's words had obviously said it. The one who retreated was the waste. Zi Qianshan reprimanded Yi Qing Luo hysterically, which was obviously because she was afraid of the 4 instructors. The students from the various academies couldn't help but burst out laughing. What #1 beauty, what goddess of the class of gods. From this look, the rumored Zi Qianshan was just SOSO. Qianshan. Wei Beilai suddenly pulled Zi Qianshan to his side and frowned. Wake up! His fingers pinched Zi Qianshan's body hard. Zi Qianshan cried out in pain and turned to look at Wei Beilai. Suddenly she froze. The scene of his hysteria just now kept repeating itself in his mind. This was jealousy. She was jealous of Yi Qing Luo. Because of jealousy, she lost her rationality. At this moment, Zi Qianshan had to admit that she was jealous of Yi Qing Luo. Listening to the ridicule from the surrounding students and the way they looked at her, Zi Qianshan couldn't help but tremble slightly. Her hands clenched into fists. Her smooth fingers were embedded into the skin of her palm. It's not that I don't want to go on stage. Zi Qianshan restrained the trembling in her voice and tried hard to maintain her usual tone. I just can't agree with student Yi Qing Luo's selfish behavior. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as she glanced at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Why would I care about myself? It's not your own business to challenge the instructors. Shouldn't you ask for our opinions before you challenge them? Zi Qianshan said as he turned to look at the students from the Heavenly Academy behind him. Su Xiaolian understood and immediately responded, That's right, that's right. What right do you have to challenge me just because you say so? The students of Intermediate Profound Class 2 naturally stood on Zi Qianshan's side. All of them were seething with anger as they criticized Yi Qing Luo's arbitrary actions. Instructor He and Instructor Chu's faces were gloomy as they stared coldly at Zi Qianshan and the others. Instructor Chu glanced at them coldly and the corner of his mouth twitched. Before he could say anything, he heard Yi Qing Luo's light and melodious laughter entering his ears. He stopped his voice and looked at Yi Qing Luo. Because I never counted on you at all. Yi Qing Luo gave a light smile as her charming eyes were filled with disdain and ridicule, so I don't need to ask for your opinions. You. Su Xiaolian's face turned cold as she pointed at Yi Qing Luo with trembling fingers. Her hand was pressed down by Zi Qianshan. Zi Qianshan raised her head arrogantly as her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with a sinister coldness. All right, since you don't count on us, then I'd like to see how powerful this legendary, stunning and peerless student Yi Qing Luo is. The Heavenly Academy's internal strife was seen as a spectator by all the major schools. Perhaps it was because Yi Qing Luo had argued for them and Gui Wu said that they were trash. Chapter 1425. Yi Qing Luo smiled. I can't say that I'm powerful, but the only thing I can confirm is, I'm definitely more powerful than student Zi Qianshan. You. Zi Qianshan gritted her teeth in anger. Her beautiful face looked extremely strange because of her malevolent expression. Yi Qing Luo had already shifted her line of sight, as her charming eyes looked towards the people on the main stage. My devil class, including me, will send out 4 students to challenge the 4 instructors, to have a 4 versus 4 battle. What does Master Gui Wu think? The moment she said that, the entire training ground turned silent. The students from various academies looked at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment. Some students dug their ears, unable to believe what they had heard. 4 versus 4 battle? Did Yi Qing Luo need to play it so big? An academy, 200 students, had no way to withstand 3 moves from 4 instructors. There were only 4 of them. What could they do? Student Yi Qing Luo, do you know what you're saying? Zoemo raised his eyebrows in interest as he asked with a smile. Yi Qing Luo's gaze was calm. Yes, I know what I'm doing. You're representing the entire Heavenly Academy. If you lose, it would also represent the results of the Heavenly Academy. Zoemo continued. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled, as she shot a meaningful glance at Zi Qianqian's direction. I think they absolutely have no objections. How could they have any objections? Yi Qing Luo's stubbornness to Zi Qianqian was the best way to escape from losing her face. Zi Qianqian, as a student of the class of gods, must support the battle with the 4 instructors. But Zi Qianqian was very clear of her own battle ability. With Yi Qing Luo's stubbornness, even if she lost, the blame would eventually fall on her. All this was because of Yi Qing Luo's arrogance. Zi Qianqian naturally had no objections. Hence, Yi Qing Luo calmly chose Yan Xiao Yi and Kitty Li. Taking another look at Long Yunzhan, she finally chose the petite lowly, Mo Yuing, who was beside him. Including Yi Qing Luo, it was a lineup of 4 female students. The students from various academies were all stunned. Heavenly Academy wasn't joking, right? 4 versus 4 battle, this was already shocking enough. Now, there was actually a female army? And each was more petite than the other. One was weaker than the other. This was hand-to-hand combat, hand-to-hand combat. Was Yi Qing Luo sure she didn't choose the wrong person? Even Gui Wu and Zoemo were stunned by the female students that Yi Qing Luo had chosen. Student Yi Qing Luo, are you sure you want to choose these 3 students to challenge the instructor? Zoemo narrowed his long and narrow phoenix eyes, unable to conceal his interest towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo nodded indifferently. Zoemo was in high spirits as he couldn't wait to see Yi Qing Luo's brilliant performance. The 4 instructors didn't reveal any disdain or belittling attitude just because Yi Qing Luo and the others were 4 female students. The 4 of them wore indifferent expressions as they assumed a defensive posture. Instructor Luo took another look at Yi Qing Luo. Instructor Luo had a deep impression of this female student because she was the first to run 10 laps without panting or blushing. Now that they saw Yi Qing Luo being so insolent, directly saying that she wanted to have a 4 versus 4 battle with them, Instructor Luo didn't feel that he had been belittled by Yi Qing Luo. On the contrary, he was extremely excited. They were extremely curious about what kind of miracle this girl could bring them. The 4 of them faced each other head-on. He was a tall and sturdy instructor. Standing in front of the 4 petite female students, he was totally like a huge mountain. His shadow was able to cover the female students. Chapter 14:26. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly. The so-called challenge is actually for the instructors to understand our skills and abilities, so as to adjust our fighting style and skills. Her voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. Under the clamorous discussion, it was still clear to the ears. The surroundings gradually quietened down. Because of this, when the instructors are battling with the various academies, what you want to see is not which student was sent flying, but which student was sent flying under the instructor's attack. Fighting skills, fuse profound qi, then you will be able to unleash the greatest power of profound qi. Yi Qing Luo's gaze looked straight at the devil class's students, as though she was lecturing them. Or as though she was lecturing the other students. Yi Qing Luo didn't have the leisure to bother about how those students understood her words. If they were willing to listen, naturally there was no harm to them. But, if they only held the attitude of, this Yi Qing Luo is pretending again. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste time to explain. Because this kind of person would be eliminated by the society sooner or later. Ha ha. Student Yi Qing Luo, You're indeed the dark horse in the Heavenly Academy's interclass competition. Not bad, not bad. Zoemo, who was on the main stage, laughed evilly. A pair of red phoenix eyes stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. He hooked his arm around Gui Wu's shoulder, raised his brows and smiled. Ah Wu, this lady is really sharp, your thoughts have been seen through by her. Gui Wu didn't reply. With a gloomy face, he looked coldly at the 8 of them on the training ground. Please. After exchanging greetings, the instructors spat out the same word in unison. Their words had just ended when the 4 petite figures in front of them disappeared from their sight. A strong sense of oppression wrapped around the 4 instructors tightly. The few instructors looked at each other and revealed their first expression today. It was interesting. Finally, there was an opponent who was worthy for them to be serious. A tender reprimand was heard from the side. Yan Xiaoyi unknowingly appeared beside Instructor Ren. She threw a punch towards Instructor Ren's face. Instructor Ren's body bounced as he speedily retreated a few steps. Immediately after, a fist-sized pink fur ball was thrown towards him from the other side. Bang! Instructor Ren's face was hit by the pink furry ball. Instructor Ren furrowed his brows as he felt a scorching pain. What a trick! Instructor Ren wiped his face and looked at Mo Yuing, who was swinging her hair that looked like 2 furry balls hanging from her shoulders. Immediately, with a loud shout, his sturdy body flew towards Mo Yuing. Playing tricks with the instructors? The surrounding students were stunned. This trick really hurt the instructor. Furthermore, none of them had been sent flying by the instructors. Mo Yuing's figure was petite and extremely nimble. The moment Instructor Ren pounced on him, he extended his legs and leaped to the other corner of the training ground. He didn't forget to wave the 2 fur balls in his hands to harass the instructors. Kitty Li and Yan Xiaoyi worked well together. After a few moves, Instructor Ren's face was hit by a ball. None of the other 2 sides were able to gain an advantage. The instructors tacitly distanced themselves from the 4 female students in front of them. They admired the tacit understanding and cooperation of the 4 female students, as well as their ferocious attacks. Just the 4 of them were more powerful than the hundreds of students just now. They knew that they had no way of winning with speed. Moreover, they wanted to attack in close combat. Chapter 14:27. This was the reason why Yiqing Luo chose Yan Xiaoyi, Kitty Li and Mo Yuing. The 3 of them had roughly learnt her set of footwork. Yan Xiaoyi's weapon was a sickle and she was good at close combat. As for fighting techniques, she had some understanding. Kitty Li was from the Beastman race, half-human half-cat bloodline. Her movements were nimble and she could easily move between the 4 instructors. As for Mo Yuing, her body was petite and looked like a puppet without any spiritual qi. But her body was extremely nimble. The 2 pink fur balls on her shoulders could be used for close combat and long-range attack. Coupled with Yiqing Luo's set of footwork, he had completely restrained the 4 instructors. Not long later, both parties had fought for about 1 incense's time. The instructors had after all experienced thousands of battles and quickly adjusted their battle tactic. Not long later, it became a 1-on-1 situation. After the 4 instructors exchanged blows, they discovered that these 4 female students' teamwork ability was extremely strong. Not only did they have sharp reflexes, they were also able to block their moves in the shortest time possible. Hence, the instructors tried their best to restrain the 4 female students, not allowing them to get close. Yiqing Luo's opponent was Instructor Luo. Instructor Luo's height was above 2 meters and he looked burly, but in fact he was extremely nimble. And his own fighting ability was the most powerful among the 4 instructors. Take my punch. Instructor Luo swiftly struck out a punch, bringing along a scorching hot wind as it brushed past Yiqing Luo's cheek. Yiqing Luo's palm moved as her body tilted backwards. She raised her hand and her slender little hand directly blocked Instructor Luo's fist. Both hands clashed together. Immediately, the dust under their feet flew up. Both of them retreated a few steps at the same time. Instructor Luo's eyes were filled with excitement. Good fellow. I didn't expect student Yiqing Luo to have such powerful skills at such a young age. Yiqing Luo modestly pursed her lips into a smile and immediately blended in with Instructor Luo. Fists and kicks clashed, the simplest and crudest fighting technique. Every punch and every kick brought about a terrifying hurricane. After a few more moves, both parties were forced to retreat a few steps. And on the other side, Yan Xiaoyi and the rest were gradually at a disadvantage under the pressure of the instructors. Although they could rely on Yiqing Luo's set of footwork and their own advantages to gain the upper hand. But after all, they were only training their stamina, and the time they had spent on hand-to-hand combat was still short. Naturally, he couldn't compare to the instructors who had been through hundreds of battles. As time went on, he began to feel powerless. After a few more moves, the three of them were sent flying. In the field, there was only Yiqing Luo left, fighting with Instructor Luo. The other three instructors immediately flew towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The powerful fist wind was extremely shocking. Yiqing Luo was still entangled with Instructor Luo. He could feel the aura coming from all directions. A faint smile appeared on his face. Then, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and somersaulted sideways. The encirclement of the four instructors instantly fell through. Yiqing Luo didn't stay any longer. He extended his feet and teleported behind the instructor. With a flip of his palm, he struck the instructor's back. Yiqing Luo didn't hit him casually, but hit the acupuncture point on his back. Her feet didn't stop at all as she flew up and kicked towards Instructor Rin, who was pouncing behind her. Bam! Two loud crashing sounds were heard. The two instructors fell to the ground. Yiqing Luo was also evading Instructor Fang's attack. With a somersault, she was coincidentally hit by Instructor Li. Her petite body landed heavily on the ground. Chapter 1428. All right, that's enough. Zomo's voice stopped Yiqing Luo from pouncing towards the four instructors. Zomo's narrow phoenix eyes stared intently at Yiqing Luo, as his eyes were filled with deep meaning. Yiqing Luo's skills were very eye-catching. Not only that, those few female students from Devil class were also extremely outstanding. Over 200 students had no way to subdue the instructors. But in the hands of the four of them, they had exchanged numerous blows and were even injured. Zoemo was almost certain. If the four instructors had not restrained one student each, and allowed the four students to cooperate, this battle was very likely to be won by these four students. Heavenly Academy's performance is very eye-catching. You can go back and rest first. Gui Wu's voice was extremely cold, without any emotions. Gui Wu's voice made those students who were stunned on the spot, unable to regain their senses for a long time. What did they see? Devil class sent out 4 female students, and 4 muscular instructors, 4 against 4 combat instructors. They were actually evenly matched. The most shocking was the last scene. 4 instructors combined forces to attack Yiqing Luo. Although they had indeed hit Yiqing Luo. But Yiqing Luo had also injured 2 instructors at the same time. 200 students' encirclement couldn't even touch the corner of the instructor's sleeves. Whereas Yiqing Luo, relying on her own strength, under the encirclement of 4 instructors, she was still able to repel 2 instructors. This skill was simply amazing. Even the cold-faced Gui Wu, who had just accused them of being trash, opened his mouth to praise her. No wonder Yiqing Luo dared to be so arrogant, arrogantly suggesting 4 against 4 combat. It wasn't for the sake of acting cool. But Yiqing Luo really had this ability. And she believed that the students in her class had this ability. That's great. Heavenly Academy can go back and rest. Then what about us? Don't tell me we still have to continue fighting? Then hurry up and fight. The earlier we get abused, the earlier we can return to the dorms to rest. The students' wails rang incessantly. But in their tone, there was no longer the nervousness and fear from before. Thank you, Master Gui Wu. Instructor Zoumo Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she bowed slightly towards the main stage in a neither arrogant nor impatient manner, following that she led Yen Xiao Yi and the other two back to Heavenly Academy's area. Student Yiqing Luo, you've done a great job. Instructor Ho gave a rare smile. Instructor Chu smiled and praised. I knew it, if it's you, you will definitely have a way to save the Heavenly Academy's reputation. Because of that, from the start till the end, they didn't stop what Yiqing Luo wanted to do. Because they knew very well, Yiqing Luo would not fight a battle that she had no confidence in. Yiqing Luo used the 4 versus 4 combat requirement to go against the drill instructor. This also meant that she was 80% confident in her heart. Even if he couldn't win, he wouldn't leave the arena in a sorry state. Just like just now, Yiqing Luo and the other 4 female students were fighting with the 4 drill instructors. Yiqing Luo and the other 3, as long as they were able to exchange more than 3 moves with the training instructor, they would be able to win. It was still better than the situation of those 200 students being repelled at the same time. Even if he lost, he wouldn't be in a sorry state. Now the ending, not only did they not end up in a sorry state, but it also gave the Heavenly Academy a good name. It had announced to all the academies that the Heavenly Academy was called the Top Academy. It was not an undeserved reputation. Chapter 1429. Hearing Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu praising Yiqing Luo, Zi Qianqian and the rest's faces turned green and red. But in front of so many people, they could only swallow the anger in their hearts. After all, Yiqing Luo had indeed saved the Heavenly Academy's reputation. And indeed, she had fought against the 4 instructors and had won the praise of Ghost Martial Master and Zhou Mo. But Su Xiaoyan couldn't suppress the jealousy in her heart. You also know it's luck and that the instructors are giving way to you? She sneered sarcastically, her eyes were filled with anger. Such a proud show-off, I thought you didn't know. Her voice wasn't loud. But it wasn't small either. At least the students of Nantao Academy around them heard it loud and clear. Instructor Ho's face suddenly turned cold. Su Xiaoyan. Su Xiaoyan was berated and all the students' gazes converged on her. Her face suddenly flushed red and her eyes became wet. Line up. Go back to the dormitory. Instructor Ho glanced coldly at Su Xiaoyan, as if he was looking at a plague and looked away in disgust. The Heavenly Academy students didn't speak because of this heavy atmosphere. Instead, they lined up one by one and followed the 2 instructors out of the training ground. The moment they walked out of the training ground, Instructor Chu said in a deep voice, "The rest of the students are dismissed, it's free time. Student Su Xiaoyan, follow me." Su Xiaoyan was still walking in the middle of the crowd, with a few other students, angrily rebuking Yiqing Luo. Suddenly she heard the deep growl hanging from the antenna and was stunned for a moment. Before Su Xiaoyan could react, she only felt her body lightened and immediately the uniform was stuck in her throat. She saw Instructor Ho directly grabbed Su Xiaoyan's uniform from behind and with a little force, Su Xiaoyan was lifted up into the air. Su Xiaoyan flopped a few times in pain. When the other students saw this, they knew that Su Xiaoyan's various actions had completely annoyed the 2 instructors. All the students lowered their heads and no one spoke up to plead for Su Xiaoyan. After the 2 instructors carried Su Xiaoyan away, the Heavenly Academy students were divided into 2 teams. Zi Qianqian was very angry today. He stared resentfully at Yiqing Luo, secretly gritted his teeth, and turned away in the opposite direction. In the solemn study room, an old man in a white robe was stroking his white beard, smiling at a bronze mirror in front. That bronze mirror actually showed the scene of Yiqing Luo and Zi Qianqian going their separate ways. My lord, this year's Heavenly Academy is really extraordinary. There's finally an interesting program. Standing beside the old man was a slightly plump old man with a warm smile on his face. Ever since you mentioned about this year's interclass competition in the Heavenly Academy, this lord already had a great interest in this devil class. Indeed, it didn't disappoint this lord. The white-clothed old man nodded his head in satisfaction. This batch of good seedlings needs to be trained properly. In the future, they will definitely achieve great things in the Nirvana realm. These two were the director and Tian and Qianqian. The vice president smiled helplessly. Let's observe for a while first. Master Gui Wu has a strong self-esteem and is extremely arrogant. His training is something that ordinary students are unable to adapt to. Today Yiqing Luo, that lass's face was hurt. I'm afraid he will think of a more torturous way to torment the devil class's students. The director of the general hospital just quietly stroked the beard on his chin. A glint flashed in his eyes. Indeed, there weren't many who could persist without training under Gui Wu Qianqian. Chapter 1430. The next day, before dawn, a loud and clear bell rang in the school dormitory. Following that, Instructor Luo's deep voice echoed, "Students from various academies, I'll give you 2 instances time to gather at the training grounds with the fastest speed. Whoever is in last place, everyone from the last place's academy is forbidden from eating lunch." Yesterday, other than Heavenly Academy's students, the other academy students were totally tortured to death by these 4 instructors. All of them were exhausted, and when they returned to the dormitory, they collapsed onto the bed to rest, not even able to eat a single mouthful of food. When they woke up, yesterday's exhaustion and the feeling of an empty stomach instantly attacked them. The last place couldn't eat lunch? Then where would they have the energy to train? Immediately, the students of the various academies scrambled to their feet, washed up, and put on their clothes. When the various academies' students rushed to the training grounds with sleepy eyes and disheveled clothes, they saw a team running laps around the training grounds. Green and white uniform, simple and elegant. This was Heavenly Academy's uniform. That team was Devil Class? When Yiqing Luo led the Devil Class's students over, everyone saw the team's faces clearly. They were indeed Devil Class's students. You all. Nantao Academy's students pointed at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. All of them had gone through a lot of hardships before they crawled out of bed and sped over here. Devil Class's students had actually arrived long ago, and the entire class was running laps together? Hadn't they enjoyed enough of yesterday's 10 laps running? Devil Class's students have the habit of morning exercise. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. Various academies. Some of them also had the habit of morning exercise. But after yesterday's torture, the muscles on their bodies had tightened and had yet to recover. And today, Master Gui Wu would definitely give new instructions, and it would be even more tiring than yesterday's training. Was it really a good idea for Devil Class to waste all their energy on morning exercise now? Just as they were talking, suddenly a red-crowned crane's cry was heard from the horizon. It was sharp and melodious, cutting through the sky as it flew across the sky. They saw a huge red-crowned crane approaching from afar with extreme speed. That red-crowned crane had a beautiful and exquisite arc on its broad wings. As it flapped its fan, it carried a powerful aura. The surrounding air also seemed to circulate along with the flapping of the crane's wings. The white feathers were as pure and holy as snow, as if they were coated with a layer of multicolored light. What a noble and matchless red-crowned crane demonic beast! Everyone from the various academies had their eyes on the crane. When the immortal crane neared, everyone was shocked to discover something. There were 2 figures standing on the crane. A noble demon dressed in a moon-white brocade robe with a jade belt. One of them was dressed in black and had a cold look on his face. Ghost Martial Master. Instructor Zhou. The students immediately stood up straight and greeted the crane respectfully. Zhou's gaze swept across the crowd and finally fell onto Yiqing Luo. On the foreheads of the Devil Class's students, there was a thin layer of perspiration. He immediately understood. He couldn't help but gave a low laugh as he used his hand to nudge Gui Wu beside him as he teased, "Looks like you weren't ruthless enough yesterday. Look at the Devil Class's students. They can even bring their own classmates to run 2 laps and above." Gui Wu shot a cold glance at him, as his lips tugged coldly. Chapter 1431. One after another, the students from the various academies rushed over. Zi Qianqian was also late. Looking at her exquisite makeup and neat clothes, it was obvious that she spent most of her time on dressing up. At the same time, when the last stick of incense burned out, the bell rang. Both Gui Wu and Zhou Mo were still standing on the back of the red-crowned crane, overlooking the students below. Suddenly, the corner of their eyes fixed on a certain place. Not far from the training ground, a petite figure was moving, as if trying to avoid the sight of others and quietly blend into the crowd of students. However, that petite figure had yet to get close to one of the student teams. A gust of wind swept down and landed beside the figure's feet. The figure seemed to be startled. She shrank back a few steps and fell to the ground. Su Xiaolian. The students from the Heavenly Academy exclaimed when they saw that person. That figure was Su Xiaolian. Her face was pale as she fell to the ground, shivering. Hearing someone calling out her name, Su Xiaolian looked at the Heavenly Academy in a daze. "It's the people from the Heavenly Academy." Then, the students from the Heavenly Academy are the last students to arrive at the training ground today. The ones who are banned from lunch are the Heavenly Academy. The students from the various academies suddenly screamed. One by one, they cheered. They were so hungry that their chests were sticking to their back. They were worried that they would be the last student to arrive at the training ground, causing the entire academy to starve along with them. If they really became the culprit, the academy would definitely target them. Now it was confirmed that the last student to arrive at the training ground was Su Xiaolian from the Heavenly Academy. Their hearts that were hanging in suspense could finally be put down. Su Xiaolian heard the voices from the various academies. Her petite body shrank back in fear. She didn't even have the courage to look up at her own class. That look made many of the male students from the Heavenly Academy feel a little unbearable. "Su Xiaolian, what are you doing? Why can you still come to the training ground? Weren't you expelled from the Heavenly Academy? You're not even a student of our Heavenly Academy. This doesn't count, she doesn't count." The students from the Heavenly Academy were suddenly anxious. This Su Xiaolian, on the way from the Western continent to the Southern continent, he kept causing trouble for everyone, and even caused the Heavenly Academy to lose face in front of other academies. On the other hand, Su Xiaolian was completely unaware of this. Now, they were even forbidden from having lunch. No matter how well they usually played together, the students of Intermediate Profound Class 2 reprimanded Su Xiaolian without hesitation for their own benefit. He did not even acknowledge that she belonged to the Heavenly Academy. "Shut up." Instructor Ho's frozen face seemed to be covered with frost. He glanced coldly at the students from the Heavenly Academy. The Heavenly Academy is particular about teamwork and loyalty. Since Su Xiaolian is the last student to arrive at the training ground, then she shall obey the rules and be prohibited from having lunch. Since the instructor had spoken, the students of the Heavenly Academy did not dare to refute. Gui Wu stood on the back of the red-crowned crane as he frowned and stared at the silent Yiqing Luo for some time before nodding his head lightly. It would be best if Heavenly Instructor is willing to follow the rules. In other words, the ban on lunch in the Heavenly Academy had become a foregone conclusion. Chapter 1432. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her piercing gaze stared deeply at Zi Qianqian's direction. She noticed it. Su Xiaolian, who seemed to be filled with guilt, timid and fearful, raised her eyes to meet Zi Qianqian's gaze. Yiqing Luo also knew clearly. Su Xiaolian had intentionally become the last to arrive at the training ground. And this deliberate action must have been under Zi Qianqian's orders. This knowledge made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh out loud. Zi Qianqian's jealousy had turned Zi Qianqian from the high and mighty, pure and holy goddess, into the current goddess. Women, indeed easy to be controlled by their own emotions. In order to make the devil class ban lunch collectively, to come up with such a rotten idea. and also slightly tipsy. Devil class could not eat lunch. Could it be that they could eat it? One must know they were representing the Heavenly Academy. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue, facing Zi Qianqian, whose IQ had plummeted. She didn't even have the interest to tease her. Under the wailing of the Heavenly Academy, Gui Wu and Zhou Mo leapt down from the crane and stood on the main stage. Zhou Mo clapped his hands. 4 instructors were seen walking to the front of the main stage. Each of them took out a space bag. Thump, thump, thump. Several heavy objects landed on the ground, crackling and rattling reverberated throughout the entire training ground. Then, items that looked like golden silk soft armor poured out of the interspatial pocket one after another. Those soft armors looked extremely light and thin. But from the sound of the soft armors landing on the ground, it made the students from various academies' hearts beat like drums. Inexplicably, there was a kind of ominous premonition. Here are specially made soft armors. One soft armor weighs about 70 caddies. Each of you, come here to receive a soft armor. I'll give you 2 instances time to change into the soft armor and report to me. Several instructors spoke in a deep voice. The students' eyes widened. 70 caddies soft armor? Can we still walk with 70 caddies of soft armor? This isn't training, this is cruel torture. The students wanted to cry but had no tears. However, the Devil class students had already taken the lead to receive their own soft armor. There were even a few students who requested for 2 soft armors. The student's expression. His heart was on the brink of collapse. Devil class students, are you sure you're not joking? Were they sure they could wear 2 sets of soft armor? One piece weighed 70 jin. 2 freaking pieces weighed 140 kilograms. Could they still play happily? Can we still happily train together? If these students knew, other than these soft armors, Devil class students were also wearing gravity belts on their bodies. The heaviest of them weighed at least 25 jin, plus the weight of the soft armor. Each of them carried at least 100 kilograms of weight. No matter how unhappy the students were, in the end, he still obediently stepped forward and received his soft armor. In just a moment, the students from the various academies, who had changed into soft armor and stood on the training ground again, were all pale, as if they were facing a great enemy. Some of them even felt their legs go weak, and were on the verge of collapsing when they walked. From now on, before the end of the training, none of you are allowed to take off your soft armor. Gui Wu's ice-cold voice resounded throughout the training grounds. His sharp eyes swept across, and a cold chill caused those students who were still wailing in pain to stop their voices. Chapter 1433. Yes. Awed by Gui Wu's imposing aura, all the students responded in unison. Gui Wu retracted his gaze and continued, "Then today we shall officially start our training. Now all the students will line up and follow the instructors towards the Blazing Flame Nest to carry out the outdoor training." Blazing Flame Nest? These 4 words made Yiqing Luo's brows jump abruptly. This place. It was the place where the Heavenly Dean and the Dark Forces had an agreement to offer the students' souls to the King of Darkness. Could it be that the Heavenly Dean had already started to take action? Or perhaps this Gui Wu was also someone from the Dark Forces? Blazing Flame Nest? Master Gui Wu, we can't go there for the time being. That's right, the Blazing Flame Nest has been very strange recently. Our families have been reminding us not to go near it. I heard that there had been some changes in the Blazing Flame Nest recently, and the Imperial Tutor had prophesied that there would be a divine object descending into the world in the Blazing Flame Nest, causing batches after batches of forces to enter the Blazing Flame Nest. But none of them had returned alive. When the students heard about the location of the Blazing Flame Nest, their faces instantly turned pale. Recently, there were rumors about the Blazing Flame Nest flying around. Gui Wu actually wanted to lead everyone towards the Blazing Flame Nest? Although the students didn't want to defy Gui Wu's orders. But the minute they recalled the rumors in the Blazing Flame Nest, They were extremely terrified. Gue Wu frowned, not understanding what the students meant by the rumors. He looked towards Zoemo. Zoemo shrugged his shoulders as he stood out to smooth things over. Our training will only be at the periphery of the blazing flame nest, and will not enter the inner part of the blazing flame nest. Whereas at the periphery, the various elders from the headquarters have set up an enchantment to protect the students' safety. As long as the students follow the rules and don't fall behind, then there absolutely won't be any danger. Zomo's words made those students who were clamoring to change the location to quieten down. Blazing flame nest. Will there be a problem? Long Yunzhan also heard from Yiqing Luo that the dark forces were preparing to lure the students into the blazing flame nest. Hearing this news, Long Yunzhan was slightly stunned. We still have to make a trip there. If there's any accident, immediately bring our brothers and evacuate. Yiqing Luo lowered her voice. It's much safer to enter the blazing flame nest with Yunzhan. In the end, the location of the field training was decided to be the outer area of the fire nest. Gue Wu and the 5 drill instructors were present, as well as the various elders from the headquarters, who had set up a barrier to protect them. The students gradually let down their guard. The main reason was because they really had no other energy to think about other things. With the 70 kilograms soft armor on his body, he could still walk a few steps. But after the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, he began to struggle to move and began to pant. This was especially so for Zi Qianqian. Her meticulous makeup was soaked in sweat, and her entire face was covered in rouge. Many of the female students had only put on some light makeup due to time constraints, so they were not as disheveled as Zi Qianqian. They hadn't even walked a quarter of the way, and there were already students complaining incessantly. The one who suffered the most was the students of the devil class, walked in high spirits, their faces calm, totally unable to tell that they were wearing a 70 kilograms soft armor. Chapter 1434. Among them, there were devil class students who were wearing 2 sets of soft armor. Furthermore, and there were 2 female students who were wearing 2 sets of soft armor. These 2 girls didn't even crease their brows, no different from usual. The various academy's students. Damn it, were they still human? Were they all a bunch of freaking perverts? The students' pride had suffered a huge blow. Gue Wu and the 5 instructors didn't ride on that red-crowned crane, nor did they ride on horses. Instead they walked, leading the way at the front. The group, close to 2,000 over people, majestically headed towards the direction of the blazing flame nest. It was so powerful that basically everyone in Valley Wind City knew about it, and everyone knew about it. Momentarily, numerous commoners started to flock over. Gue Wu and the accompanying elders from the main courtyard didn't obstruct them. Surrounded by a group of enthusiastic commoners, he walked with difficulty. Yiqing Luo was still bewildered. Wasn't Gue Wu a mysterious figure who couldn't be more mysterious? Appearing in front of everyone's line of sight in such a grand manner. Wasn't he afraid that his mysterious persona would collapse? The truth had proven that Yiqing Luo's bewilderment was unnecessary worry. Because, even if Gue Wu walked in the middle of the group in a grand manner, no one would believe that the young man who had that invincible youth, that young man's face, would be the famous Gue Wu master in Nirvana realm. Because of his young age, no matter how handsome Gue Wu and Zoemo were, walking at the front. But it still didn't attract much attention from the commoners. Yiqing Luo's forehead was filled with black lines when she saw this. All right, previously she also couldn't believe that Gue Wu master would be someone who had a Shota face. The surrounding commoners started to crowd more and more. Originally, these commoners wanted to see the valiant youngsters who represented Nirvana Realm's Flower of Hope, as well as the rumored Gue Wu master. But the reality made them exceptionally disappointed. Close to 2,000 over students were all sweating profusely, staggering as they walked. Were these still the youngsters who represented the Flower of Hope? even an ordinary walk, seemed to be throwing away half of one's life. Could it be that these people who cultivated Xian Qi moved their Xian Qi and relied on flying to get by? Finally, the gazes of all the commoners landed on the 2 youths and 4 middle-aged men who were walking at the very front. Their steps were light and quick, and they were neatly lined up with the Devil class students. Which academy is that student from? There are so many students in the academy, but the only one who is normal is that academy's student. Let's send our children to that academy to study. That's the uniform of the Heavenly Academy. Someone recognized the uniform worn by the Devil class student. Heavenly Academy? The first academy. This is the academy that has been named the best academy for many years. This is indeed the first academy. Compared to the other academies, I seem to understand why the Heavenly Academy is so strict in enrollment. The discussions of the commoners were extremely ear-piercing to the ears of the students. Their faces were red, and they were extremely embarrassed. He tried his best to walk in a normal posture. However, the weight on their bodies was getting heavier and heavier. They were grumbling in their hearts, wondering if this Gui Wu master and the 4 instructors were doing this on purpose. There was obviously a small path from the main academy's training grounds to the blazing flame nest, which could be taken as a shortcut. But Gui Wu master led the way towards the main path, directly towards the direction of the city gate. Not only did it extend the route. Chapter 1435. Could it be that Gui Wu was intentionally trying to ruin the reputations of the various academies? Or, Gui Wu had actually been bribed by the Heavenly Academy? Were they intentionally helping the Heavenly Academy to build up their reputation? In fact, the weighted soft armor on the Heavenly Academy was fake? The students from the various academies were all immersed in their thoughts. Just at this moment, they heard another round of discussion coming from the crowd. Look, the group at the back are also Heavenly Academy's students. What's wrong with these students? Why do they all look so sickly? Heavenly Academy's students. Why do they also look so sickly? The First Academy's students can't even walk properly? That's right. I heard that the students from the Heavenly Academy who are participating in the exchange meet are selected from several classes. Among them, the Devil class, which has the reputation of Heavenly Academy's Waste Class 1, is also here. Waste Class 1? That is to say, those students at the back are actually the Waste Class 1 student. They must be the Waste Class 1 students. I also heard that the Heavenly Academy had brought 2 students from the class of gods, and one of them is the number 1 beauty of the Heavenly Academy, Zi Qianqian. Look at the Heavenly Academy team in front, that female student leading them. Isn't she devastatingly beautiful? Then it must be Zi Qianqian. Tisk tsk. The exchange meet is such a sacred event. Why must the Heavenly Academy bring along such a waste team? It's such a disgrace to the Heavenly Academy. The surrounding crowd looked at Gui Wu's group of students as they discussed excitedly. They were just short of rushing up to Yiqing Luo and the rest, and asking them personally. Zi Qianqian and the rest's expressions turned uglier by the minute. These foolish commoners of the South Waves continent, they actually dared to call them the trash class, the students of the Devil class? But, no matter how much resentment they had in their hearts, Zi Qianqian and the rest were stunned, and none of them opened their mouths to refute the commoners' discussions. They were recognized as students of the Devil class. The commoners treated Yiqing Luo as Zi Qianqian. Instead, they chose to tacitly agree. At least, in the eyes of outsiders. They, the students of the class of gods, the elite students of the Heavenly Academy, had finally preserved their reputation. Zi Qianqian's number 1 beauty reputation had at least been preserved. The students from the other major academies had expended all their energy on walking with the weight. He didn't have the leisure nor the energy to speak up for the Devil class. Especially when he saw Yiqing Luo and the others with a relaxed expression, following behind Master Ghost Marshal with an extremely satisfied look. The students had even less thoughts of helping the Devil class. At this moment they were extremely vexed. It was very clear. To cultivate Xian Qi, one should also have a strong physique. But they insisted that training their physical bodies was a waste of time. Instead, he spent a lot of time on how to raise his profound level. The students of the various academies suddenly recalled some time ago, during the interclass competition in the Heavenly Academy, the students of the Devil class were collectively chased by low-level magical beasts, almost circling the entire mountain behind the dormitory for more than 10 rounds. At first, they only treated this news as a joke. Once he said it, he would be happy and it would be over. However, only now did they realize how foolish their thoughts were back then. So, the students of Devil class had long been training their bodies. Suddenly, all kinds of praise for the students of the Heavenly Academy's class of gods and the elite students behind them were in full swing. Chapter 1436. A voice stirred up thousands of waves. The surrounding commoners were all excited. Not Zi Qianqian? Isn't that Heavenly Academy's student? I remember her. Previously at Ling Wang's tomb. I've met her once. That person cried out agitatedly. I'm absolutely not mistaken. She is Yi Qing Luo. She's the one who obtained the god relic and contracted with the White Tiger Sacred Beast and Divine Dragon, the World Mercenary Group's vice group leader Yi Qing Luo. That was Yi Qing Luo? That person's words made the surrounding commoners' eyes widen as they stared straight at Yi Qing Luo. That was Yi Qing Luo? Regarding Yi Qing Luo's deeds, although it all happened in the West Continent, but the people in the South Continent had more or less heard about it. Yi Qing Luo was not only the vice group leader of the World Mercenary Group, she was also a student of Heavenly Academy's Devil class. Devil class, which was the waste class one which they were talking about. As for Yi Qing Luo, she was walking among those handsome-looking, young and energetic students. Which meant to say, what they had guessed earlier, was that the class of gods and the elite students of Heavenly Academy were actually students of Devil class, whereas the students who they thought were waste class 1 were those elite students. The surrounding commoners' voices instantly quietened down. Only the sounds of people drawing in breaths could be heard faintly. Following that, the South Continent students started to boast about Devil class's students in various ways. All of them were extremely interested in this class, which was obviously labeled as waste class, but had become this year's black horse which had charged out of everyone's eyes. So much so that the class of gods and those elite students were almost trampled underfoot by those commoners. Zi Qianqian and the rest's expressions were filled with gloomy clouds. Looking at Devil class's students, they seemed as though they couldn't hear the surrounding commoners' boasting and frenzied shouts. All of them had a calm and unperturbed expression as they walked forward. This look, in Zi Qianqian and the rest's eyes, that was a blatant mockery. Physical exhaustion, the surrounding commoners' ridicule, and the contempt from Devil class's students. The Heavenly Academy's students were feeling more and more exhausted. When they reached Valley Wind City's city gates, Gui Wu suddenly stopped. He turned his head, his cold gaze sweeping across the rows of students behind him. The expression on his face did not change in the slightest, and his voice was cold and emotionless. Once you leave this city gate, don't even think about retreating. If you feel that you can't hold on, you can choose to leave now. Don't waste our time. Quit? Thinking back to the day before, those students who didn't complete 10 laps were all forcefully sent back to the academy and disqualified from participating in the exchange. It was easy to imagine what would happen to those students when they returned to the academy. He would definitely become the laughing stock of the academy. Thinking of this, the students clenched their teeth. No matter what, they refused to say the words of giving up at this time. The following training will be even more brutal than yesterday and today. The weight-bearing software on your bodies will also continuously increase the weight. Furthermore, in the next few days, don't even think about having a good meal or drinking water to your heart's content. It is very likely that he will be hungry and thirsty for an entire day. Instructor Luo's majestic voice sounded. As soon as these words came out, the hearts of the students who had vowed that they would never back out suddenly trembled. Obviously, they were somewhat shaken. They were very clear. Chapter 1437. Now, based on yesterday's training, as well as today's weight-bearing soft armor, weigh your own stamina and ability to see if you are able to last through the next 5 days of special training. Instructor Ren's voice was very calm. Among the 5 instructors, Instructor Ren seemed to be the easiest to talk to. Why are you talking so much nonsense with them? Suddenly, Instructor Li, who had been silent for a long time, could no longer tolerate it as he pushed Instructor Ren aside. You bunch of trash, if you think it's tiring, then get lost from our special training team. Stop wasting time. Following that, he pointed towards those 2,000 students. If you give up now, you can do whatever you want in the future. You don't need to carry weights and don't need to starve. These few instructors' words seemed to be tempting those students, and quite a number of students were indeed bewitched. The 70-kilogram weight-bearing soft armor was already taking away half of their lives. If it continued to increase in weight, wouldn't it take away their entire lives? Even if the Academy's elders or instructors tried their best to dissuade them. There were also close to 300 over students who chose to quit. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, a group of close to 2,000 students was left with 1,500 over students. Gui Wu didn't stay any longer. Leading the 1,500 over students, he headed straight towards the direction of the Blazing Flame Lair. The Blazing Flame Lair was located in the most mysterious depths of the South Continent's border. It was similar to the cold demonic beasts in the West Continent. It was a place for various large mercenary groups or various academies' students to complete missions or capture demonic beasts. This was considered as a sacred place in the South Continent. Setting off from Valley Wind City, it took several hours of journey. Along the way, Yiqing Luo acutely discovered that there were extremely messy and complicated footprints on the ground. It seemed as though many people had passed by this place. Yiqing Luo had heard of that rumor regarding the Blazing Flame Lair. It was said that the imperial tutor of the South Continent had prophesied that there would be a divine object descending into the Blazing Flame Lair. This led to various powerhouses sending people to snatch it. However, none of them survived. These footprints were probably from those cultivators from various powerhouses who entered the Blazing Flame Lair. Until they reached the Blazing Flame Lair, Yiqing Luo didn't see a single person passing by. Blazing Flame Lair was indeed worthy of its name. Following Gui Wu and the other instructors standing at the entrance of the lair, they could feel an extremely intense heat wave surging towards them. The heat waves made the students feel extremely hot. The sweat on his body evaporated by the heat. He felt increasingly stuffy. The students of the Devil class were all feeling uncomfortable from the heat wave. Gui Wu looked at the entrance of the Blazing Flame Lair, before turning to look at the students behind him, who were still approaching them one by one. He calmly said, "All students will rest here for 2 hours. Once the head institute's elder has set up a barrier in the safe zone, we will all enter the flame nest together." He heard that he could rest. The students who had staggered over fell to the ground on their butt. At this moment, how could he care about his image? Why would he care about the differences between men and women? They just wanted to fall to the ground and never get up again. Zi Qianqian and the others followed behind the crowd, panting heavily as they rushed over. Their uniforms had long been soaked in sweat, and even their hair was wet and stuck to their skin. That feeling was indescribably uncomfortable. The students who came later saw the students lying on the ground and knew that it was time to rest. Zi Qianqian did not care about her image as the number one beauty. Chapter 1438. After rushing for several hours, she was still wearing the weighted soft armor. And outside the blazing cavern, she was surrounded by the surging heat. Her throat was extremely dry. One by one, the students took out the water pearl and started gulping down water. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo stood at the entrance of the blazing cavern, paying attention to the enchantment which the elders had set up while sizing up those students. Gui Wu frowned tightly as his gaze fell on Yiqing Luo for some time. Following that, he looked towards the direction of Zi Qianqian and the rest. His brows creased even tighter. Devil Class's students, after arriving at the entrance of the blazing cavern, didn't immediately rest. Instead, they observed the surrounding environment acutely. After confirming the surrounding environment, they gathered together and took out the water pearl. Each of them drank a few mouthfuls to soothe the burning sensation in their throats before they stopped and closed their eyes to rest. And those elite students who were praised by Heavenly Dean and Elder Yun Xiang. But after arriving at the entrance, they had no image at all. From yesterday's 10 laps of running, and the battle with the 4 instructors, and from today's situation of carrying heavy weights and walking for half a day, the aptitude of Devil Class's students was obviously much higher than the so-called class of gods by many times. Are you curious? Zhou Mo hooked his arm over Gui Wu's shoulder as his phoenix eyes rose slightly. Devil Class in Heavenly Academy had always been treated as a non-existent waste class. It was rumored that for 2 to 3 years, no teachers had been sent to teach in Devil Class. Gui Wu frowned as he glanced sideways at him. Only Yiqing Luo, this young lady, managed to pass the admission assessment in half an hour's time. In the end, she probably offended someone in the academy and was allocated to Devil Class. That's when Devil Class gradually started to be remembered again. Zhou Mo specially went to investigate on Yiqing Luo's information. This information could be easily found out in Heavenly Academy just by casually inquiring about it. Gui Wu narrowed his sinister eyes. The rise of Devil Class was absolutely not just because of Yiqing Luo's arrival. Yiqing Luo had only entered Heavenly Academy for a few months, not even half a year. In a short span of a few months, it was impossible to train that batch of waste to what they were now. To have this kind of tacit understanding, this kind of stamina, this kind of ability, it was absolutely not something that could be trained successfully in a day or night. At the very least, he had trained for 2 to 3 years. Such a class was actually treated as trash for so many years. Zemo immediately continued. That old man Guiyu also went to the Devil Class because of Yiqing Luo and also went to teach there. All this while, the Devil Class had never had a teacher teaching? Then what's the point of these students staying in the Heavenly Academy? What was the Heavenly Academy up to? Wait a minute, Gui Wu frowned. You mean Guiyu? Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows. Yes, that old man Guiyu also fell in love with Yiqing Luo, and because of her words, he accepted her brother as his disciple. Accepting a disciple. Gui Wu narrowed his eyes with interest. This little girl, he really wasn't simple. There was something about her that people couldn't fathom. Even the lunatic old man Guiyu was subdued by her. This special training is getting interesting. At this moment, the 4 drill instructors who were standing at the side and looking at the students were also discussing in low voices. What do you guys think of that lass from Devil Class? After being an instructor for so many years, this is the first time I've seen such an energetic student. Chapter 1439. Instructor Ren rationally opened his mouth. This batch of students is indeed the most outstanding students we've seen in the many years we've been in this position. Instructor Luo hooked his arm around Instructor Ren's shoulder. I'd like to have a one-on-one battle with that lass. Fighting with you guys isn't as satisfying as fighting with her. It's rare to see you all praising a student together. Instructor Fang's gaze swept past Yiqing Luo, who had her eyes closed. Not only are you all interested in that female student, Master Gui Wu and young Master Mo also seem to be interested in her. The few instructors' gazes immediately shifted onto Zhou Mo and Gui Wu. Qing Luo, the training instructors have been looking at you. Yan Xiaoyi leaned her head over and whispered into Yiqing Luo's ear. Amen. Yiqing Luo responded indifferently. The four of them didn't conceal their gazes at all. Even if she didn't turn back, she could feel that the four of them were staring at her. Amen. And Gui Wu and Zhou Mo were also looking at her from time to time. Yiqing Luo knew that too. The performance of her brothers in the devil class for the past 2 days was indeed too eye-catching. To be noticed by these instructors was a matter of course. But Yiqing Luo didn't put it to heart. She had no intention to restrain herself and let her brothers continue to hide in the dark. I have a feeling that the instructors will think of ways to torture us. Tong Ziqing narrowed her eyes and said coldly, I've heard that the instructors who specialize in training students love and hate students like us the most. Most of the instructors probably had this kind of mentality, listening to orders, obeying all the instructions and completing all the tasks in the best manner. This kind of students made the instructors very fond of them. But it also made the instructors want to test how big this kind of student's potential was. Because of this, they would constantly increase the intensity of the training, torturing these capable students. In terms of abnormality, I feel that no one is more abnormal than Qing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi raised her brows disapprovingly. No matter how these instructors want to train us, we can take it. You'd better save some energy and saliva and have a good rest. Yiqing Luo interrupted their words. The special training in the blazing flame nest will be much more intense than your usual training. Pausing for a moment, Yiqing Luo's sharp eyes swept across the surroundings as she lowered her voice. Inside, there might be a tough battle to be fought. The expressions of the devil class students suddenly congealed. Before they came to South Tide Continent, they had heard Yiqing Luo mention that she wanted to find some time to make a trip to the blazing flame nest. The place which Yiqing Luo was interested in must be an extremely important place. Therefore, before anything happens, all of you should properly receive the training of the ghost warriors. Of course, while receiving training, you also have to preserve your own forces. Yiqing Luo's words made devil classes students all nod their heads solemnly. He rested for about 2 hours. The elders of the main academy repeatedly confirmed that there was no problem with the barrier, before returning to inform Gui Wu. Gui Wu looked at the pile of students lying on the ground, his brows tightly knitted together. However, he did not urge the students to get up. He only nodded lightly. After resting for such a long time, Zi Qianqian and the others gradually recovered their strength. The sweat on their bodies had been evaporated by the heat waves in the blazing flame nest. Zi Qianqian could obviously feel that his face was extremely uncomfortable. Chapter 1440. When Su Xiaoyan's vision was fixed on Zi Qianqian's face, she let out a terrified. It attracted the attention of all the university students. When they saw Zi Qianqian's face, all of them started laughing. Zi Qianqian realized something as she hurriedly took out the palm-sized bronze mirror which she always carried with her. In the bronze mirror, his comical face was reflected. Zi Qianqian instantly spat out a mouthful of blood from anger. Yiqing Luo. She gritted her teeth as she growled out Yiqing Luo's name, her eyes filled with venomous hatred. The bronze mirror in her palm was crushed by her. The broken mirror cut Zi Qianqian's palm. She totally didn't notice it. Zi Qianqian blamed herself for being so comical and embarrassing herself in front of the various academies on Yiqing Luo. She totally didn't think about it. All these were because of her. Under the circumstance that she knew it was training, she still put on such exquisite makeup, which caused her to become a laughing stock. However, Zi Qianqian had cleanly pushed the blame away from him. After another hour, Ghost Doctor urged the students to enter the blazing flame lair. After resting for a period of time, the students' energy had mostly recovered. Entering the blazing flame lair is equivalent to entering another space. Gui Wu's tone was solemn, as cold as ice. You'd better listen to what I say. If you disobey the instructor's orders and cause yourself to meet with danger, or get seriously injured or even die, the headquarters will not be responsible. Yes. The students replied in unison, as they responded loudly. Blazing Flame Lair, as the name suggests, is a land of flames. In the deepest part of the Blazing Flame Lair is an incomparably huge cave. Hence, after entering the Blazing Flame Lair, you will feel as though you're in a sea of flames. Gui Wu's words made those students' faces surfaced a sliver of astonishment. The periphery of the Blazing Flame Lair has already been sealed off. If you obediently move around within the boundary, the heat from the periphery will not take your lives. Gui Wu continued. The students' faces turned slightly pale. But they had already walked to this point, and Gui Wu had guaranteed that there would be no danger to their lives. None of them wanted to give up just like that. They could only brace themselves and follow behind Gui Wu as they entered the Blazing Flame Lair. The surging heat waves seemed to be able to roast people. The students immediately complained to the heavens. These heat waves were indeed not life-threatening. But to endure this heat wave for an entire day, even if he didn't die, he would still lose half his life. They opened their mouths and sucked in a mouthful of hot air. His breath was also filled with hot air. Even the surrounding environment seemed to be covered with a layer of steaming hot flames. As soon as they came in, there were students who couldn't wait to drink water. There were also some male students who directly took off the clothes on their upper bodies, leaving only the weighted soft armor on. But even though they were naked, they still felt hot. As for those female students, even if it was so hot that they wanted to take off their clothes, they could only resist this urge. It was like being on fire. And they were meat wrapped in flames. I'm going to die of heat. What the hell is this place? No, I can't take it anymore. I want to go out. I want to leave this place. The students were howling nonstop. There were students who wanted to rush out of the Blazing Flame Lair. However, when they neared the exit, their bodies seemed to be obstructed by something, as they were bounced back. That was a boundary. The students were dumbfounded. Chapter 1441. Of course. Gui Wu paused for a moment. His icy cold gaze made the students who were burning up feel a chill rising up. This chill did not disperse the heat on their bodies. Instead, it made them feel a stifling heat, a chill down their spine. You can choose to reject the training, refuse to follow the team, then think of your own ways to leave the Blazing Flame Lair. Gui Wu said the second half of the sentence. The students were filled with resentment. Under this kind of environment, how could they choose to find their own ways to leave? If they followed the team, at least they would be able to survive these 6 days safely. If they left by themselves, in such a strange place, who knew if they would suddenly meet with danger? They could only clench their teeth and choose to follow the team deeper into the Blazing Flame Lair. Along the way, more and more male students were left with only one piece of weighted armor. The female students cried out incessantly as they tore at the clothes on their bodies. Among the 1,500 students, there were at least 500 female students. Among them, there was no lack of beauties. But at this moment, those male students were so hot that they did not even have the mood to pay attention to those half-clothed beauties. Even the 4 instructors were sweating profusely. But, looking at Gui Wu and Zhou Mo, both of them had a calm expression, not even a drop of sweat dripping down from their foreheads, as though they were not affected by the heat wave at all. If it was only Gui Wu and Zhou Mo who were fine, then so be it. But countless students realized, following closely behind Gui Wu, were the 60 over Devil class students. Their clothes were neat and tidy, their steps orderly, with a relaxed and leisurely expression. What the hell was this? They were so hot that they wanted to run around naked. Why were the Devil class students not affected by the weather? As students, how could they not be compared to the Devil class in any way? This Devil class students, what kind of perverts were they? After walking for about 10 over kilometers, those students were already exhausted, panting and had no energy to walk any further. Zhou Mo looked behind him, at those students who had already dragged out a long line, and called out for a temporary break. The students couldn't care less about the scorching heat of the ground. They all fell to the ground and became corpses. Zoemo swept a glance at the expressionless devil-class students with interest, as he directly walked towards Yiqing Luo, who was drinking water. How did you know that we would choose the location of the special training, to be at the blazing flame nest? I don't know. Yiqing Luo put down the kettle in her hand and raised her head to meet that pair of exceptionally charming phoenix eyes. You don't know? Zoemo had a faint smile on his face full of disbelief. If you don't know, then how could you have prepared the ice pearl in advance to resist the heat waves of the flame nest? Yiqing Luo calmly curled her lips as she gave a sweet smile. Frost ice pearl is considered as Valley Wind City's specialty. My classmates and I will naturally buy one each as a souvenir. Icy frost pearl. It was a bead made to counter the heat waves of the fire nest. As long as it was worn, it would not be affected by the high temperature. Because the flame lair was located on the South Wave continent, as the main city, Valley Wind City, all the shops of all sizes would sell glacial ice pearls. Yiqing Luo knew in advance that Heavenly Dean would think of a way to send them into the flame lair, to become the king of darkness's food. Yiqing Luo also didn't know when Heavenly Dean would execute his plan. So Yiqing Luo took the opportunity to leave the training grounds in advance. Chapter 1442. Devil Class and the others were all wearing the Frost Pearl. Because of this, they who were situated in the Inferno Nest would not be affected by the heat wave. To them, they didn't feel hot, but instead felt extremely cool. Yiqing Luo's reply was reasonable. Zoemo had no way to pursue further as he squinted his phoenix eyes as he gave an evil charming smile. Student Yiqing Luo's luck is really not bad. Yiqing Luo smiled lightly. I think so too. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. But in their hearts, each of them had their own different thoughts. After resting for a while, Ghost Doctor didn't stay any longer. To let these students continue to lie down, they were even more unwilling to stand up. There was a possibility that before they reached their destination, these people would drink all the water they had. Looking at the sky, Ghost Doctor spoke in a deep voice, "Line up, go." The students were in despair, but they had no way to defy the order. They could only clench their teeth as they stood up and walked forward. They looked resentfully at the calm bunch of devil-class students in front of them as they wanted to cry but had no tears. The students from the other academies couldn't bear it any longer as they squeezed to the side of Zi Qianqian and the others as they asked softly, "You're all Heavenly Academy students, can you ask Devil Class, how on earth did they endure this kind of heat?" Zi Qianqian was sweating profusely. The hot weather made her feel even more annoyed. Hearing someone mention asking her to go to the Devil Class at this time, her mood instantly exploded. If you want to ask, go ask yourself. The students who were shouted at had their faces sunk. One by one, their disdainful gazes swept past Zi Qianqian coldly as they ridiculed impolitely. "You're not as good as Yiqing Luo, why are you getting angry at us? Do you really think you're the number one beauty? Why don't you take a look at your comical look, I spit." In the hot weather, one's temper would explode at the slightest provocation. These few female students originally wanted to speak nicely and ask for some advice, to let everyone relax a little. Whoever knew that they were bombarded by Zi Qianqian. Not as good as Yiqing Luo? Just based on her, what qualifications does she have to be compared with Yiqing Luo? She's not even fit to carry Yiqing Luo's shoes. Another female student chimed in. The way I see it, these students from the class of gods are nothing but a joke. One or two of them can't even compare to the toes of the devil class. Didn't you guys see Zi Qianqian's embarrassing performance just now? How could she become the number one beauty of the Heavenly Academy with this appearance? I thought I could get into the academy and the class of gods with money, but now I can buy the title of the number one beauty with money. Sentence after sentence of ridicule caused Zi Qianqian's face to turn red. When had Zi Qianqian ever suffered such humiliation? All along, she had always been high and mighty, receiving the flattery of everyone. Over the years, Zhang Xian's participation in the inter-academy exchange had left a beautiful impression in the hearts of the students of the other academies. But this time, he had suffered such great humiliation. Everything was Yi Qing Luo's fault. If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo, the one in the limelight today would be her, Zi Qianqian. All of you, shut up. What nonsense are you spouting? Our Qianqian goddess is a goddess. If you want to bootlick the devil class, then go to the front and do it. Don't be an eyesore. Seeing this, Su Xiaolian immediately grabbed Zi Qianqian's arm and stood up for her. Su Xiaolian didn't want to stand out. But now, she was already on the same boat as Zi Qianqian. Chapter 1443. The commotion at the back did not affect the neatly organized team at the front. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo could not be bothered with the students' dispute. The 4 instructors also did not bother about it. The devil class students could vaguely hear that the reason for the commotion was related to the devil class. But they pretended not to hear. In this hot weather, they still had the leisure to quarrel. After wasting so much saliva, when all the water in the water source pearl was extracted, they would know how stupid their actions were. They walked for another 5 kilometers or so. Those students finally did not have the energy to make a ruckus. The entire team once again fell into silence. They only felt that their legs were like lead balls, unable to move even half a step. The students' willpower was slowly being worn down. The number of students who fell to the ground increased. But Gui Wu did not have the intention to stop and rest. He continued to lead the way, minding his own business. The wind brought his deep and steady voice. There is still another 20 kilometers ahead, we will rest there today. 20 kilometers. Oh my God! I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going either. So what if I die? If we continue, I'm going to lose my life. When the students heard this number, they were all stunned. One by one, they immediately knelt on the ground. They would rather die here than take another step forward. What kind of training was this? Early in the morning, they were made to wear a 70-kilogram soft armor. After walking for half a day, then, they changed to the blazing flame nest, and continued to run with heavy load. F***K. Was he trying to train them to be little cross-country athletes? All this training had nothing to do with them raising their profound chi. Just as the students were grumbling in their hearts, they heard Zhou Mo's clear voice again. 20 kilometers ahead, there is a tent that we have set up. Inside, we have stored lunch for today, and sufficient water. Only those students who have reached the destination are qualified to eat lunch and drink water. After a pause, he smiled and continued, I believe that the students' water source pearls did not store much water? Not only did they not store much, what's more, they did not even think of storing water. Who would have thought that Gui Wu would suddenly bring them to the wilderness for training? He had to admit that Zhou Mo's words were a blatant temptation. Lying here, they could only wait for death. However, as long as he persevered for another 20 kilometers, not only would he be able to eat, but he would also be able to replenish his water supply. When faced with a multiple-choice question, everyone would undoubtedly choose the latter. This was undoubtedly an incentive. The students who had been howling about dying here gritted their teeth and stood up one by one, continuing to walk behind the group. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but gave a thumbs up to Zhou Mo's move. He still didn't know whether Zhou Mo was telling the truth or not. However, regardless of whether it was true or not, looking at how the students were moving with all their might, it was enough to prove that Zhou Mo's move was correct. Devil Class's students had already shaken off the students behind them by a huge distance. Just about 10 kilometers away from the destination, Yi Qing Luo suddenly felt an intense restlessness. Something wet suddenly covered her neck. That damp hair, with a sultry feeling. Even if she was wearing the frost pearl, Yi Qing Luo still felt a wave of heat from her neck. Woo woo woo. Chapter 1444. Chi-Chi. Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand and touched the bundle of hair hanging on her neck. It was Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi crawled out of the pet space on her own. Chi-Chi is turning into barbecued meat. Chi-Chi looked at Yi-Ching Luo with an aggrieved look. Chi-Chi is so hot. Touching the wet fur on her hand, Yi-Ching Luo could tell that Chi-Chi was about to turn into roasted meat. In this climate, there was even a thick layer of hair on his back. Yi-Ching Luo took out a frost pearl from the profound phoenix ring and stuffed it into Chi-Chi's mouth. After sucking on the ice pearl for a while, Chi-Chi finally regained her spirit. Its little body rubbed against Yi-Ching Luo's shoulder. Its wet fur was so sticky that Yi-Ching Luo couldn't help but stretch out her hand to pull Chi-Chi down. "Why did you come out?" Yi-Ching Luo asked Chi-Chi. Gui Wu and Zoemo were still up ahead. Yi-Ching Luo could not talk to Chi-Chi directly. Otherwise, if others knew that Chi-Chi could speak human language, they would definitely be shocked. He was afraid that there would be endless trouble. Chi-Chi felt the calling and thought that Master was summoning Chi-Chi, so Chi-Chi came out. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes and looked at Yi-Ching Luo in an adorable manner, but, after coming out, Chi-Chi then felt that it was not Master's summon. "Summon? Is it the summoning you felt before?" Chi-Chi shook her head. "It's even stronger than that summoning feeling. It was as if it was right in front of him. That's why Chi-Chi thought Master was summoning Chi-Chi." "Close at hand?" Yi-Ching Luo narrowed her eyes, as she carefully pondered over Chi-Chi's words. Ever since they arrived at the South Wave Continent, Chi-Chi could sense that a certain place in the South Wave Continent was constantly calling for Chi-Chi. Yi-Ching Luo had already asked Wind to investigate that place. After arriving at the Flame Lair, Chi-Chi actually felt that the summoning was getting stronger. And he even thought that she was the one who was summoning Chi-Chi? In other words, the thing that summoned Chi-Chi was in the Fire Lair. She had asked Wind to follow the direction that Chi-Chi had pointed out to the location where they were headed. Was it the Flame Lair? This matter was too much of a coincidence. "Chi-Chi, go back to the pet space first and bring a frost pearl for Shijue." Yi-Ching Luo placed Chi-Chi on her shoulder. Her half-squinted eyes were suffused with a glimmer of brilliance. "Chi-Chi, don't forget to accurately sense the direction where you are being summoned." Chi-Chi let out a low howl. With a frost pearl in its mouth, it was about to return to the pet space. However, he heard a mocking voice. "This is training, not a field trip. You even brought your pet?" Zi Qianqian quickly walked over with the help of Su Xiaoyan and the others. Zi Qianqian was sweating profusely, and her clothes were already soaked in sweat, sticking to her beautiful body. She had already washed away the colorful stains on her face with water. A beauty was indeed a beauty. Even without makeup, her appearance was still extremely beautiful. Coupled with this wet and seductive look, she really did look a little charming. After arguing with the female students, Zi Qianqian found it increasingly tiring. She didn't even have the strength to control her profound qi to resist the heat wave. Seeing that the devil class was still in high spirits, without any signs of heat, Zi Qianqian finally couldn't take it any longer, as she wanted to ask Yi-Ching Luo if she had secretly cheated or played any trick. But she saw Yi-Ching Luo hugging a palm-sized white cat, talking intimately to it. Chapter 1445. The students of the various academies were drenched in sweat. They were on the verge of losing their lives. And Yi-Ching Luo was still able to carry a cat, playing and laughing. When Zi Qianqian saw this scene, he felt that it was unfair in his heart, and words of mockery had already escaped his mouth. Yi-Ching Luo shot a glance at Zi Qianqian as she leisurely carried Chi-Chi in her arms and stroked its fur. Her lips curled into a faint smile. "Whoever I bring along has nothing to do with student Zi Qianqian. You're a student of the Heavenly Academy. This special training is very important. If you bring a magical beast with you, then forget it. However, with such a pet, are you trying to drag the academy down?" Zi Qianqian frowned and reprimanded him in a serious manner. When Yi-Ching Luo heard that, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Till now, Zi Qianqian was still talking to her about students from the Heavenly Academy. talk to her and drag the academy back. The person who was least qualified to say such a thing was Zi Qianqian, all right? When she was instigating Su Xiaoyan to disregard the reputation of the Heavenly Academy and slander the Devil class, why didn't Zi Qianqian think of the Heavenly Academy? When he instigated Su Xiaoyan to be the last to arrive at the training ground, causing the Heavenly Academy's students to not be able to have lunch together, why didn't he think that he was dragging the Heavenly Academy down? In fact, isn't the one dragging the Heavenly Academy down you from the class of gods, Zi Qianqian? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she sneered. If you have the energy to find trouble with me, you might as well save some energy. There's still a few kilometers to go. I'm worried that in the end, you'll be carried to the destination. You. Zi Qianqian's face darkened as he gritted his teeth and glared at Yi Qing Luo. I know my stamina very well. I don't need you to be a busybody. Yi Qing Luo laughed softly as she looked at Zi Qianqian as though she was looking at an idiot. Did you think that after reaching the destination, you would be able to recover your energy? Our Heavenly Academy can't even have lunch because of someone. Zi Qianqian felt a lump in his throat. The words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't spit them out. That was right. The Heavenly Academy did not have the right to have lunch. That was to say, even if they arrived at their destination. The Heavenly Academy could only starve and watch the students of other academies eat. There was no chance for them to replenish their strength. The feeling of hunger and pain in his abdomen expanded in an instant. At this moment, Zi Qianqian was filled with regret. How could he be so stupid? For the sake of taking revenge on the devil class, he actually threw himself into this mess. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about Zi Qianqian's gloomy expression as she carried Qi and walked past her. Just as she returned to the group, Yi Qing Luo saw a pair of interested eyes staring at her. Qi in her arms. It was Zhou Mo's gaze. Ah Wu, look at that little guy, doesn't it look like? Zhou Mo nudged the ghost martial artist with his hand. Gui Wu lightly swept a glance at Qi before his pupils abruptly contracted. That is. Gui Wu's gaze gradually turned grave as he strode towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Zhou Mo pulled him back in time. Don't be impulsive. That's just a little kid. We're only guessing right now. That's clearly the holy beast, the white tiger. Gui Wu's brows were tightly knitted together as his pair of malicious eyes swept past Yi Qing Luo and then looked at Qi who was in her arms. She actually possesses the sacred beast white tiger? How could the holy beast white tiger sign a contract with such an ordinary girl? Chapter 1446. Gui Wu turned silent. It was about a young girl who was not even 16 years old, contracting the holy beast white tiger, controlling the legendary divine dragon, and obtaining a divine artifact. It was not that he had never heard of it. However, he subconsciously believed that this was just a premeditated propaganda method. After all, no one in the world had actually seen the so-called holy beast white tiger. Perhaps that girl had only contracted a slightly higher grade tiger beast, and she had deliberately made it look like the holy beast white tiger to intimidate those who didn't understand. But now, he saw with his own eyes the white tiger that looked like a cat. Gui Wu had to admit it. It was the legendary white tiger, one of the 4 great sacred beasts. No one else had seen it before. But he had definitely seen it before. That also meant, the rumor about the tomb of the Ling King was indeed true. That so-called divine dragon, could it be one of the 4 great sacred beasts, the Azure Dragon? If that was the case, Gui Wu's expression suddenly turned grave as he turned his head to look at Zhou Mo. She is. I don't know anything. That's your upper realm's business. I'm just a normal person. Don't ask me. Zhou Mo quickly cut off the haunted house's question. After that, his narrow and long phoenix eyes narrowed, and his face didn't have the usual teasing and careless expression. What replaced it was a deep heaviness. Of course, regardless of whether she is or not, these words should not be mentioned in the lower realm. Gui Wu pursed his lips. His gaze turned and gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo for some time. Clenching his fists, he averted his gaze and stopped probing. It wasn't that Yiqing Luo hadn't felt Gui Wu's increasingly naked gaze. She was not used to this kind of intense gaze, as if it could see through her soul. Previously, Gui Wu had been staring at Qi-Qi. And now he was staring at her. Could it be did Gui Wu discover Qi-Qi's identity? Cough cough. In her mind, Old Man Tsang's voice suddenly sounded, "Little Luo, you have to be careful." Recently, Old Man Tsang had always been cultivating in seclusion within the Azure Dew bracelet. He said that he needed to raise his mental power as soon as possible so that he could condense his spirit body and walk out of the Azure Dew bracelet to move around in a certain range around Yiqing Luo. Apart from the occasional conversation with Old Man Tsang, she hadn't heard Old Man Tsang take the initiative to look for her in a very long time. That ghost martial artist. Old Man Tsang seemed to be hesitating on what words to use to describe him. After a long while, he finally said, "Don't get too close to him." Yiqing Luo was at a loss. "Old Man Tsang, do you know him?" "I don't know him." His straightforward and decisive answer made others even more suspicious. But Yiqing Luo didn't continue to question. Old Man Tsang would not harm her. Since Old Man Tsang had told her not to get too close to Gui Wu, it was definitely because of Old Man Tsang. Seeing Yiqing Luo's silence, Old Man Tsang sighed and said, "He towards you, although he doesn't have any malicious intentions, but it's better to minimize contact." "I understand." Yiqing Luo nodded and placed Qi-Qi on her shoulder. "Qing Luo." Long Yunzhan walked behind her as he suppressed his voice and asked, "What happened to Qi-Qi?" All the students in the devil class knew Qi-Qi's identity. He also knew that Qi-Qi was very obedient and would not leave the pet space on her own. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for Yiqing Luo to summon Qi-Qi. There was only one possibility. It was Qi-Qi herself who came out from the pet space. Yiqing Luo stroked Qi-Qi's wet fur. "Nothing much, it's just too hot, so I came out to get some fresh air." Although her words were so calm, however, her eyes flickered slightly. Chapter 1447. Such a large group, under the speed of a tortoise, gradually arrived at their destination. Yiqing Luo and the rest walked right at the front, and from afar, they could see a large piece of empty land, where a large wooden shed was built. It looked to be able to accommodate 700 to 800 people. She gauged the environment of the wooden shed. Yiqing Luo had a bad premonition in her heart. Accommodating 700 to 800 people meant that half of the students had no way to rest. If they wanted to enter the wooden shed to rest, based on ghost martial artist and these instructors' nature, there would definitely be a competition or training. Why must they let a group of students kill each other? Yiqing Luo and the rest followed the instructors and were the first batch of people to reach the wooden shed. Behind them was a long line of people. The students used all their energy as they tried their best to take a step forward. Those students, when they saw the wooden shed which was just a few feet away, they were filled with even more motivation. Just at this moment, Instructor Luo wiped off the sweat on his forehead as he looked at the few rows of people behind him as he laughed loudly. "Devil class's aptitude is indeed not bad. The weighted soft armor and the blazing flame lair didn't have much effect on you. Not bad, not bad." His voice was thick. Through the transmission of profound chi, instantly the entire blazing flame lair's outer skies resounded with Instructor Luo's voice. When those students heard it, they instantly felt a deafening sound. When they heard Instructor Luo praising Devil Class, they instantly felt a sense of embarrassment as it surged up their hearts. Instructor Luo's words, was he ridiculing them that they were not as good as Devil Class? Although this was the truth. But no one was willing to admit it. And at this moment, no matter what, they would not give up. This time, there are a total of 790 beds in the wooden shed, which means there are 790 students who can lie down and rest at night. The rest of the students will settle their own resting places. Instructor Luo's deep voice continued to ring. Yiqing Luo's premonition had come true. The other students' hearts suddenly trembled, as they felt inexplicably uneasy. Students who arrive at the destination earlier will be able to enjoy the beds in the wooden shed, regardless of school, regardless of class, only based on who arrived first. After a pause, Instructor Luo said meaningfully, "Of course, you can also snatch the beds of other students. As long as you have the ability, under the precondition that you are not allowed to use your profound energy and do not cripple, seriously injure, or endanger someone's life, you can use any method to snatch the beds of the students who have bed." As soon as Instructor Luo's voice fell, the students of the various academies were shocked. What kind of damned rule was this? 790 beds. This meant that at least 600 students had no beds. He was the first to arrive at the wooden shed, but he still had to guard against the 600 or so students snatching his bed. This was really forcing them to kill each other. In this world, the weak are prey to the strong, and the strong are respected. If you don't have absolute strength, you won't have the qualifications to protect what belongs to you. Gui Wu directly ignored the resentful gazes of the students, as well as their bitter expressions. The university students were unable to refute Gui Wu's words. He didn't have powerful strength. They would not be able to protect what belonged to them. Gui Wu was teaching them the way to survive in the Jianghu. Even if the bed would be snatched away in the end. But there were still quite a number of students who tried their best to push away the students in front, as they tried their best to sprint towards their destination. Quite a number of students who were already exhausted, at this moment, unknowingly found the strength to actually start running. When Yiqing Luo saw this scene, she could only sigh. Chapter 1448. Yiqing Luo and the rest, along with Gui Wu and the rest, arrived at the destination one after the other. Devil class had the right to choose the bed. Yiqing Luo took a look at those beds. This was a temporary large wooden shed. It didn't look too beautiful, but it was still considered sturdy. Under the wooden shed, there were beds one after another. It was about the size of a normal man. On each bed there was a thin blanket. Under this kind of environment, such beds were indeed considered luxurious. Yiqing Luo led the devil class, as she chose the 60 over beds at the corner. Then, he pasted his name on every bed. Only after they had allocated the beds did the next wave of students arrive one after another. The students were already exhausted. Gui Wu looked at the students that were still doing their best to flock over, and his calm voice resounded through the sky. Students that have arrived can take a short break, or head to the front to collect your lunch from the head academy's elder, as well as your own water bag. Hearing this, the students' eyes were almost sparkling. The students who had already arrived casually pasted their names on the beds, as they couldn't wait to collect their lunch, and madly sprinted towards the direction. The rest time is 2 hours. Gui Wu didn't stop the chaotic situation. 2 hours later, today's special training will begin. 2 hours? Special training after that? Surely it wasn't a joke? The students who had already arrived, as their legs went soft, as they laid face down on the ground. As for the students who received their lunch, they almost dropped the lunchbox in their hand. Those students who were still quite a distance away from their destination were all waiting for death. They were as tired as dogs, all right? Just resting for 2 hours and they had to undergo special training? How would they have the energy? Their hearts were filled with resentment, but they had no choice but to accept it. As Heavenly Academy's student Su Xiaoyan was the last to arrive at the training grounds during the morning assembly, so Heavenly Academy has cancelled her lunch rights. Gui Wu's next sentence finally made the students from the various academies feel better. Human nature was like this. Couldn't bear to see others doing better than themselves. Even if Yiqing Luo had helped them in the actual battle with the instructors yesterday. Even if Yiqing Luo's ability made everyone fearful. But these students, were already filled with jealousy towards the devil class who had been in the limelight. They couldn't wait for the devil class to suddenly fall, so that they could laugh at them. Behind them, Zi Qianqian and the others, who were trying their best to move forward, heard this, and their expressions darkened. Especially Zi Qianqian. He felt like he had shot himself in the foot. She was extremely regretful now. How could he be so stupid as to instigate Su Xiaolian to be the last student to arrive at the training ground? As a result, he was half dead from exhaustion. His stomach was extremely hungry, and he could only watch helplessly as the other students ate. Furthermore, next, there would be special training. Just thinking about this, Zi Qianqian's legs turned to jelly. Isn't Yi Qing Luo, that slut, very arrogant? If we don't let them eat lunch, they will definitely clamor with the instructors, right? Su Xiaolian felt a chill down her spine under the horrifying gazes of the other Heavenly Academy students. She quickly hid in Zi Qianqian's direction. Su Xiaolian believed him. If they weren't in the middle of training, these Heavenly Academy students would definitely hate her to the point of killing her. Chapter 1449. Right. Yi Qing Luo, that slut, had always been arrogant. If the devil class couldn't have lunch, Yi Qing Luo would definitely fight for it. At that time, she would fan the flames. Yi Qing Luo would definitely receive a more severe punishment. Thinking of this, Zi Qianqian suddenly felt unlimited potential. Gritting his teeth, he sped towards the direction of the wooden shed. The students who had arrived were wolfing down the food in the lunchbox. Although it was a very simple and ordinary civilian dish, but the exhausted students were eating happily. There was no longer the arrogance of yesterday in the canteen of the training grounds, seeing porridge and vegetables and losing their appetite. The air was filled with the aroma of the food. It made the stomachs of the students who had yet to arrive grumble. Zi Qianqian and the 10 over intermediate class 2 students had finally arrived at their destination. Before they could even catch their breath, they saw Yi Qing Luo, who was standing at the same spot, watching the students eating, suddenly walking towards the direction of Gui Wu. Su Xiaolian shook Zi Qianqian's arm agitatedly. The group of people immediately looked over. Indeed, as they had expected, based on Yi Qing Luo's character, she would definitely turn the world upside down. Zi Qianqian hid the joy on his face, and put on his usual aloof look as he walked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Master Gui Wu. Yi Qing Luo's cold voice did not have any fear towards Gui Wu, but it contained a sense of respect towards her teacher. Gui Wu was deep in thought. Suddenly hearing Yi Qing Luo's voice, he raised his eyes and met her cold gaze. That pair of long and narrow eyes were clean and pure, without any other impurities. It was like a calm lake without the slightest ripple. Gui Wu was stunned. He didn't know how long it had been since he had such a calm gaze. Those people would only look away helplessly after meeting his gaze. However, this young girl was able to remain so calm. Facing his oppressive aura, she was fearless. Thinking of the day before yesterday, when he and Zoemo hid near Yi Qing Luo's room and were discovered by her, he had a faint guess in his heart, but felt that it was too ridiculous. Master Gui Wu. Seeing Gui Wu staring at her with a burning gaze but not saying a word, Yi Qing Luo called out again. Coincidentally, Zi Qianqian had already rushed to their side. I say, student Yi Qing Luo, rules are rules, you. Master Gui Wu, may we collect our water bags? Zi Qianqian and Yi Qing Luo's voices rang at the same time. Zi Qianqian's voice stopped abruptly when he heard Yi Qing Luo's question. You, what did you just say? Zi Qianqian could not believe his ears. How could Yi Qing Luo be so polite? And he didn't ask for a set of food for those bastards in devil class? Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered with Zi Qianqian as she quietly looked at Gui Wu. Gui Wu came back to his senses, wrinkling his eyebrows. He nodded his head. Sure. Thank you, Master Gui Wu. Yi Qing Luo politely nodded her head. When the students of devil class heard that, they immediately bowed respectfully towards Gui Wu. Thank you, Master Gui Wu. More than 60 people spoke in unison. Many people turned their gazes over. In his heart, he was wondering what the devil class was up to this time. Following that, they saw the group of people from the devil class walking towards the direction to collect their meals. Isn't the devil class students from the Heavenly Academy? Haven't they been banned from having lunch? Why can they still collect their lunch? What kind of punishment is this? I'm not convinced. That's right, Master Gui Wu personally set the rules. How can it be gone just like that? Chapter 1450. Facing the devil class students who were better than them in everything. The students of the various academies spared no effort in finding ways to crush them. Their motive for coming here. It was to bring glory to the academy and for their own future, to add a glory that could be sung. Everything had been stolen by the devil class, which was the Heavenly Academy. How were they going to answer to the academy? Even if Yi Qing Luo had helped them yesterday, that gratitude and worship had been depleted under their selfish thoughts. It was not easy to suppress the Heavenly Academy on the matter of the lunch ban. It was rare for the students from the various academies to work together to stop the students from the devil class. Shut up! Instructor Luo was also carrying a lunchbox and was stuffing his rice in a rude manner. Hearing those students' indignant cries, his love for young students with potential made him defend them angrily. Don't say that devil class isn't collecting their lunch now. Even if they collect it, that's a matter of course. What's the point of rules? To the strong, ability is the rule. Which one of you can be like devil class, wearing a weighted soft armor and keep up with my footsteps? I'll give you another set of lunch. Instructor Luo's rough voice made the entire crowd's discussion stop abruptly. The students shrunk their necks and didn't dare to open their mouth. Indeed, none of them could do it. As for Instructor Luo, he had no intention to let those troublemakers off. If you can't do it, then shut up. Look at devil class's students. Some of them are even wearing 2 sets of weighted soft armor. And look at you. Tell me, devil class students are collecting their lunch. Isn't it a matter of course? He was protective. He didn't forget to pull the surrounding students to help him protect them. The students lowered their heads, not even daring to breathe loudly. Is it? Instructor Luo frowned as he bellowed furiously. Those students immediately straightened their backs. Yes. Hearing the echoes, Instructor Luo's expression then eased up and didn't say another word. The students had grievances in their hearts, but they didn't dare to vent it out. They could only use a vengeful gaze to stare fiercely at Yi Qing Luo's direction. Zi Qianqian saw this and his heart overflowed with ecstasy. Yi Qing Luo, that slut, really liked to be in the limelight. As a result, they had become the target of public criticism. She wanted to see just how powerful Yi Qing Luo was. He could withstand the jealousy and resentment from the students of the various academies. The students of devil class each received a water bag. The water bag was about the size of 2 palms, and it was filled to the brim. The greatest need in the flame lair was water. And in a situation where there was no glacial ice pearl, this bag of water would at most. After this meal, it was completely wiped out. The other students did not understand the importance of water. But Yi Qing Luo had already explained it through the mercenary group badge. The devil class students did not waste this bag of water, as they kept it all into their space pockets. Seeing the actions of the devil class's students, those students who had grudges in their hearts, slowly shifted their gazes away. The rules only forbid lunch. They were not forbidden from collecting water bags. Devil class's actions could not be considered as violating Ghost Warrior's rules. Naturally, they didn't mind. The focus of the students was that the students from the devil class had received their water bag.